Haynes, it's Haskell.
What's up, dude?
You know, on the next episode of the Saturday Night Network Superfan Takeover, we're drafting the ultimate episode of SNL.
Oh, you mean the Saturday Night Network Superfan Takeover Greatest Episode Draft?
That's the one. I need a little bit of help.
I'm sure I can help. What's the problem?
It's nothing really, except I've never seen an episode of Saturday Night Live.
What? How is that possible? Of course you've seen the show. We talk about it all the time.
I don't know, I just make it up as I go.
Named dozens of individual sketches during our shows.
I'm just really good at guessing. I need your help.
I don't even know where to start.
It's like a cooking show.
What? No, why would you think that?
I don't know, people are always saying Jon Hamm was one of the best hosts.
Do you think Jon Hamm is a chef?
With a name like that, of course.
Okay, fine. I'll give you that one. But SNL is a sketch show.
Okay, so it's animated?
No, it's real people.
All right, give me 1 second. Non-fiction.
You'll log into the Peacock app and watch as many episodes as you can and quickly as possible.
I don't have Peacock. The only TV I have is CISO.
CISO shut down like 5 years ago. What do you watch?
My neighbors?
What?
Haynes, I need your help.
It will all be okay. I'm gonna give you a list of sketches to watch on YouTube to get you through the draft.
Oh man, you are a lifesaver. Good ones, right? Like so that I can win the draft?
Oh, yeah. Just look up SNL Best of Robert Downey Jr.
I can't thank you enough, man. What are you up to?
Just watching the game. You?
Just watching reruns of Mad TV.
We're talking about SNL, the history, the mysteries, and all the hot impressions and the teas. But we're here for the numbers as well. So let's get statistical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL Network.
Yes, that is right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Superfan Takeover, here to celebrate the holidays with all of you. Hi, everyone. My name is Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network. So excited to be with you and wish you a very Merry Christmas and, of course, Happy Hanukkah to all of you who are celebrating for the holidays here. We're here right after Christmas, headed towards the new year, and excited to be with the draft crew on the Saturday Night Network, who always have something fun to put together for the holidays. So excited to bring you all in. We have a very long show coming up right now. So I suggest if you're watching, grab a drink, join us, have some fun and relax, because this is going to be a very fun show. I also suggest potentially having a pen and paper handy if you want to follow along with the draft and see as people are drafting their teams tonight. But we'll explain all those rules in just a few minutes. Right now, I'm going to bring in the incredible draft crew and personalities on the network that we have here. So great to talk to them for the final time in 2022. First up, it is the regular host of our Superfan Takeovers and recently on a major high from the Bobby Moynihan interview. It is Sammy Kay. Sammy, how you doing?
I am doing well, John. Very excited to be with my friends here, the draft crew. And if you guys, audio listeners, if you can't see, I have a new boom arm thing for my mic. So I just feel like a real professional tonight. And I'm going to bring that energy into my draft tonight. Hopefully that helps me with my picks.
Yes, for sure. I know you know what you're doing. Like the first time we drafted, you never did a draft before, and now you're an expert. So I'm excited to see how you bring it, Sammy, tonight. Yeah, I know a guy who loves drafts, totally understands how to do this. I'm nervous about what he's going to bring to the table tonight. He's big competition. It is Bill Kenney. Bill, how are you?
I am so excited to be here, John. These drafts have become such a great tradition, and the fact that you always up the ante. I can't wait to see what happens next holiday. Is it going to be alphabetical by, going backwards by Z? This is really, really intense. Spent a lot of time on this, and so excited to get into it.
Yeah, this is probably the most ambitious thing we've ever done here on the network, and I'm excited to see what the results are. And of course, we have to bring back on the show with us tonight the wonderful Nicole Rovine. Nicole, how are you?
I'm good. I thought you were going to introduce me as someone who's not so good at drafts, contrasting with Bill, because I'm still very much feeling the wound of the draft we did over the summer, where I did not choose, quite. I didn't really make the best decisions. Every week I feel the burn of my poor decision making.
You're feeling the burn.
Oh yeah, just wait.
We'll talk about
We're
it.
gonna talk. We're
But
gonna talk about
I'm
it before
good.
we get into
I'm
everything.
excited to be here. It's the squad. We're here, and it's gonna be fun. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very pumped, and of course, always pumped to get to talk to this guy. It is TJ Randolph. TJ, how you doing?
Well, John, I'm fantastic. I'm feeling blessed, black, and highly favored. I just went to Costco and got my buying in bulk on. That is my. I just switched to the buying in bulk thing a couple of months ago, and I feel like I've evolved as an adult. So honestly, I'm doing pretty great.
Sounds good to me. All right, we'll have to explore that more a little bit later. But now over to Haynes, who is just hurting so much with the loss of Cecily Strong. Haynes, how are you?
Blue, blue, blue Christmas.
Oh wow! No,
That's the way I'm feeling.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm feeling right now. That's the way
We
I'm
have the
feeling right
rights
now.
for that.
We do now. Yeah. Haynes, are
I
you
think less than
drafting through
30
Christmas tonight?
No, I'm not. Well, I mean, no secrets. Maybe I will. Who knows? No. Yeah, listen, I'm just excited. I love these drafts, even though I'm getting stung really bad losing Cecily. Maybe we'll talk about possible adjustments for that kind of situation. But very excited about tonight. And I think, if we did a thing where like maybe we revealed, the most recent results, I just give me 1 week at number one before it all goes downhill. Just give me one. Give me 1 week. That's what I need.
All right, coming right up. But first, we got to introduce Rebecca North with us tonight. Rebecca, how are you doing?
I'm good. Honestly, I need this draft to go well for me because I got a really big upset in my fantasy football draft where I was projected to win and knocked out in round one of playoffs by 1 point. So I need this redemption to feel good about myself. I mean, I don't want to jinx it because that's what I do with my fantasy football, but with our summer draft, I'm seemingly doing well for now. So I just need this to, boost my ego back up.
You are doing
I
pretty
hope
good.
you lose. I hope you lose so much. Like, I'm not the only one that you're so sad.
I mean, I'm new to the draft. I'm a newly initiated member into the draft.
No,
crew,
you're
and-
not. You were here last.
No, the summer draft is my first one. And so, like, the first draft, beginner's luck, like, I have to keep that high.
That is true. Yeah, it's true. And that actually happened. Same thing happened with Hallie, back in the day. And she came in and just killed us all. So, yeah, miss you, Hallie. Yeah. On to bigger and better things. So, of course, have to bring in as well, last but not least, it is Andrew Haskell. Haskell, how are you doing?
I knew if I did these Superfan Takeovers long enough, you would text us and be like, I got an idea. How about you guys review every sketch ever, which is what we had to do to prep for this draft. It's incredible. Haven't slept in about 2 weeks, and I'm excited to go 3 more hours, but it should be fun.
All right, looking forward to it. Before we get into our draft tonight and all of the rules, which we will explain to all of you, we have to talk about this draft that we did right before the start of season 48, which was our cast draft, where you had to choose 2 cast members to be a part of your team, and every sketch appearance they were in, you would get 1 point. So we have our little group text chat going. We've been monitoring it all season long, and now that we're at the unofficial halfway point of season 48, I have to bring up our standings, which shows that Rebecca is in first place right now with the team of Chloe and Sarah, 67 points. Haynes started at the bottom. Now he's number 2 with Ego and Cecily, 64 points. TJ in third with Heidi and Devin Walker. Sammy in fourth with Keenan and Michael Longfellow. Sammy was in the lead for a long time. Started falling a little bit. Team Bill in fifth with JAJ and Marcelo. Team John in sixth with Mikey and Molly. Nicole in seventh had the first overall pick. Decided to go with Bo and Yang and Michael Che. Haskell in last place with Dismukes and Punky, the team of third-year players. So this is very interesting. So we have a little bit of a dilemma here because Cecily Strong left the show. So that means Haynes would only get points from Ego moving forward. However, Colin Jost was not drafted. So the big question is, does Haynes get Colin Jost from this point forward? So wouldn't get the extra 10 points from Colin. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to vote on it, okay? So there's 7 people not named Haynes here. So you need 4 votes to move forward. Haynes, I'll let you make your case, and then we'll vote on it, okay? So Haynes, what do you think happened to your team?
Listen, it's not about my team. It's about the integrity of the game moving forward, right? And so what we want is competition, right? We don't want people dropping behind and not being able to compete coming down the stretch. We want a tight race. We want stuff going. We want to be going to overtime. We're taking it to the playoffs. For the benefit of the game, it's very important that we set a serious precedent here. And moving forward, if we have a mid-season departure, someone would be able to then pick up an undrafted cast member. It's important for the integrity of the game.
Okay.
Can I make the counterpoint?
What
Well,
happens
wait.
next time a mid-season person leaves? Because
Let's
then there's no one
do this
left.
in order. Wait, guys, I want to do this orderly just to make sure that the listeners can understand this. So, yes, Haskell, you can make your point. So, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go around. You can make your point, and then you're going to vote. Okay? So, Haskell, you want to make your point, and then you can vote, and then we'll go to Rebecca, then TJ, then Nicole, then Bill, then Sammy, then me. So, Haskell, go first.
All right. I'm sitting in last place with Dismukes, who I drafted over Cecily because I said, I think Cecily's going to leave midway through the season. That was part of the draft. So I'm a big old no, he does not get Colin Jost.
Okay, Rebecca, what is your vote?
You drafted Cecily knowing there was a chance she wasn't even going to be in the season. She wasn't even in the credits.
Whoa.
for the
You don't
first few
tell me
episodes.
what I did or why or what I was thinking.
Haynes,
No.
Listen, you
You
can
had
make
your
an
time
argument.
to speak, Haynes.
You can make an argument. You don't get to put words in my mouth.
Okay, Haynes,
But
Haynes,
it
you had
was
your
the
time to
general
speak.
knowledge that Cecily might not be in this season, and then you got lucky that she was and had a good
Lucky.
few episode run, and then she's
She's a
leaving. So
cast
no, I'm
member.
voting no.
I muted Haynes, so he doesn't have an opportunity to for now.
Voting no.
So okay.
Voting
that's-
reality at the 10.
TJ, what's your vote?
Hell no! Are you kidding me? That also, if your argument was better, I would have gone for it. But absolutely, mother trucking not. I mean, no, I'm saying no because you made your choice, and that's what it is. Also, to be fair though, Colin wouldn't be that much of a boost to him. But my answer is no. To be fair, I will say this: my answer, just to be nice, my answer is out of wanting everyone else but me to lose. Just so you guys know where I'm coming from.
Okay. All right. Nicole, I think I know what your answer is, and this will probably seal it, but yes or no, should Haynes get Colin?
First of all, I should clarify when I say I'm regretting my choice, I'm regretting my choice to place myself first because it was a 2-round draft. So I just want to make that clear if anyone's listening for the first time. I do not regret who I chose first. I regret placing myself as first. Anyways, this is actually, even if I were in the lead, even if whatever, like, it's not just because I'm trailing behind. It's the integrity of the game. You made your decisions. People made decisions. People chose other people over Cecily, knowing, we had a lot of information about Cecily, like what has been said. This was not certain for her. It's not ever certain for anyone. And again, if you just get Colin Jost, what happens if someone, breaks their ankle and an ankle injury leaves them on the sidelines? It's not sports, but it's close to sports. So a broken ankle for the end of the season. I mean, what would they do? They don't have a Colin Jost left if you take a Colin Jost. So it's a humongous, tremendous no for me. I mean,
all right, just for it is going to be a no, but just for fun, Bill, what was your answer?
Well, now I could say yes, and Haynes won't be mad. Like, why would I? No, Nicole's points are true. Like that would be my biggest concern. Not that we would, if you're playing fantasy football, somebody goes on the IR, you pick somebody up. But
Exactly.
if somebody leaves, if somebody else leaves in January or February, then what are we going to do? Are we going to split Jost in half? Like that would be.
Right.
So that would be the reason I'd say no. Sorry, Haynes.
All right, Sammy.
Yeah, honestly, I think in our group text, I was the one that kind of brought this question up when we were, in the frenzy of like, oh my God, Cecily's leaving. Like, what does this mean for the draft? Blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of leaning towards the idea of Haynes picking up Colin because, as John mentioned, I don't do drafts. I'm not the most competitive kind of person. But after hearing all these arguments, Haynes, I'm sorry, man, but my vote would also be to kind of say screw you, and you're not able to pick up.
Oh, Jesus Christ, guys!
Wait, John, I have a question.
And I've spoken my point.
John, I have a question.
Yes, TJ. Yes.
It honestly feels like just these first 15 minutes is just like draft update. It feels like, I don't know, are you going to release this as a piece by
Yes, I
itself?
am.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I don't know. We're releasing this as part of the podcast. But yes, for what it's worth, Haynes, I would have said yes because I'm your only friend here. So I would have.
No, you don't get credit for going at the end. No.
Yes, but the trial of Andrew Haynes is completed. You will not get Colin Jost. Sorry, Haynes.
Also, Haynes gets less points because he didn't, at the beginning of his argument, say, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury." You had the perfect opportunity, and just come on.
I
Haynes.
will remember each and every one of you.
If it makes you feel better, you'll still have more points from Cecily than Nicole will have for Jay the whole season. So
That's a very good point.
All right, let's go. Let's move forward with this next
Look at me
draft.
sad.
Yeah, Haynes, are you okay? You okay to move on? You still have it in you?
I'm used to nonsensical arguments from Nicole. That's fine. But I think I'm ready to move on. I mean, it's a game. It's for fun. Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's keep going. Okay, so let's explain what exactly is happening here tonight with the Ultimate Episode Draft. So basically, we have done some really fun drafts in the past. We've drafted cast members, hosts that have never hosted the show before. So this time we wanted to do the most ambitious thing we've ever done here, which was draft the ultimate episode. So if you had to pick sketches from the history of the show and put together your rundown of the ultimate episode, what would that episode look like? So we picked a rundown that is, typical of classic SNL, which consists of one cold open, one monologue, 3 live sketches, 2 pre-tapes, 1 musical guest performance, and 1 set of weekend update throughout an episode. And we're asking, that's 9 rounds. We're going to ask all of our panelists to pick sketches from the history of the show to fill in their rundown. Once a sketch has been selected, it is off the board. So hypothetically, you were to pick Celebrity Jeopardy from season 24 or something like that, whatever episode you decide to pick, there's no more Celebrity Jeopardies that are eligible for anyone else's team. Same thing goes for musical guests. You pick Paul Simon performing in the music, no more Paul Simons are selected. We just want to make this as easy as possible for the listeners to be able to follow along. So hopefully, if anything comes up, we will be able to clarify on the podcast, and you can pick your choices in any order. If there is anything confusing, we decided beforehand, before the podcast started, that we will leave it to a majority vote. Okay? So, and if it's a tie, we'll flip a coin. That's what we're going to do. So, to kick things off tonight, we have to pick a draft order, and the most fair way to do this is we're going to have the person who's in first place right now in the cast draft select the order for this draft. So Rebecca, you have all the power here. You can select who you want to draft where. Please let us know your choices.
Okay, I'm going to have Nicole go first.
Okay. I'm a little traumatized in this.
You put me last the first time, so I just figured I'm going to keep it this way. I'm going to put Haynes next.
Oh, why?
Me third. I also came prepared with this because I kind of figured you would either have like the funniest or the person in first. So either way, I would have been choosing the draft. I'm going to have TJ next.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Rebecca.
John. Okay, yeah, the rest looks good, actually. I'm going to keep it as is.
Just to clarify for the audio listeners, that would be John 5th, Sammy 6th, Bill 7th, and Haskell picks 8th. I feel like Haskell's always on the turn, but
never been
Eighth is a good spot. 8th is a good spot.
Yeah, for this draft, it could be a good one. Okay, so basically, we're going to kick off our draft right now. Nicole is going to go first. So Nicole can select any sketch, any segment pretty much from the history of Saturday Night Live to place either as a cold open, monologue, live sketch, pre-tape, update, or musical guest. Nicole will let us know where in her rundown she wants to place this particular segment that she's going to pick. And then we will let you guys know, and hopefully you'll be able to follow along as such. So Nicole, let's kick off our ultimate episode draft right now.
Woo! Okay. I have a favorite sketch and a sketch that will be taken. You know what? I need to just be true to myself. My favorite sketch that I always rewatch. And okay. I wasn't expecting to go first. Just kidding. I'm gonna go with something else. Okay. I'm gonna choose a live sketch, and it's gonna be the first live sketch of the night, right after the monologue, after that first commercial break. And it's going to be Black Jeopardy with Tom Hanks.
Son of a bitch.
Okay, so first off the board is a Black Jeopardy, a very famous sketch from modern SNL days with host Tom Hanks. This is one that's been replayed a lot over the last few years for just being brilliantly written. TJ, clearly this is something that you wanted to take tonight, so give us your thoughts.
I can't stand the intersection of Nicole and I. I hate it so much in these because it's to me that's modern classic. I like Jeopardy. I rewatch it constantly. It makes me laugh, just like the references or when Steve Higgins things. I appreciate it because it's one of those sketches that, like, even though it belongs in kind of a certain decade, it's changed cast members with the exception of Keenan, and it's always like still hit really well for me. And so I can't believe it got taken first, but I mean, it's a great sketch, and everything post 2010 is kind of like, dangerous or eligible. We're probably going to get picked pretty quickly.
Okay, so Black Jeopardy is off the board. Nicole has our first sketch after her monologue. Haynes, we're going to head over to you for your first pick. You have plenty of options available on the board.
I have so many options, and so this is going to be really funny. I'm also going to take the first live sketch of the night, and I'm going to take Celebrity Jeopardy. So I am taking the other Jeopardy. As far as if I had to pick a single iteration, I mean, there's 15 of them, and they're all so good. I love Martin Short, as Jerry Lewis, but at that point, in like the first version, they haven't. Sean Connery and Alex Trebek haven't developed their like Trebek, like I'm trying to bang your mom kind of like vibe. So I'm going to move down the line. And if I had to pick a single one, then maybe it'd be the one where Burt Reynolds wears the big hat, because I know there's plenty of Sean Connery talking smack to Trebek during that one. So yeah, that'll be my pick.
Okay, that seems to be a very popular sketch that I believe would have had to go in this draft. I mean, that's one of those ones you saw it at SNL 40, an all-timer. So that totally makes sense. Haynes, if you didn't pick it, may not have come back to you. Bill, what do you think about the pick here for Celebrity Jeopardy going to Haynes very early on in our draft?
This wouldn't have been my first because there's a sketch I really want to make sure I get, but it probably would have been my second round, and the same one that Haynes picked. That is the standard by which all Jeopardies were set. Bert with the big hat, Turd Ferguson, Ape Tit. Like we get everything all in this one sketch. Really, the only kind of weak link is Fallon as French Stewart. Don't know if people would get that as much these days, but everything else is 100% in this. So yeah, that's had to go.
Okay. All right, Rebecca, you put yourself in
ready.
Third, so you are ready. All right, give us your pick, the third pick of the first round.
So I had to specifically keep Jon and Sammy after me because we did just discuss this sketch when we had the Steve Martin Short episode. And I know Jon said it's in his top 5, and I said it's my go-to sketch to show someone that is not an SNL fan to help them convert. So I'm going to choose my first pre-tape slot, and I'm going to go Farewell, Mr. Bunting.
Yeah, this is to me a modern classic, definitely one of the best pre-tapes of all time. This is a Fred Armisen when he comes back, returns to host, and we get this Farewell, Mr. Bunting sketch, very similar to a sketch we just got with Marty and Steve this fall that was written by the same guys. So that makes sense that you would take that. It was definitely on my board. Sammy, was it on your board?
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, like Rebecca said, we just talked about this recently, very similar kind of vibes to the Christmas Carol sketch with Martin Short. Yeah, truly a modern classic. With pre-tapes, though, there are a lot on the board here, especially from recent years, that I'm a big fan of. So I'm not too upset about this one going away, but I think it's a solid first round pick.
Okay, TJ, over to you for the fourth pick in the first round. Where are you going to go to kick off your rundown?
I definitely want to kick something. I'm furious about that pick, the Black Jeopardy thing. But I feel like I can at least feel a little bit better because I can still get what was my second top pick since we couldn't do cut for time sketches. I'm going to pick one of the few sketches that's it's one of our it's kind of in the theme of double hosts. I think it's one that people do rewatch a lot. I think it is a modern classic sketch as well. I'm going to pick Meet Your Second Wife with Amy and Tina. Yeah, that's right, Nicole. Yeah, I'm going to pick Meet Your Second Wife with, sorry, that was very aggressive. I'm a lady. Yeah, Meet Your Second Wife with Amy and Tina. I think this sketch is punch of it is so funny. I think it's something that is an observation only. Please correct me on this, but like I feel like it's something an observation that like only like women kind of catch, but it's something that when they do point it out, it's so funny to just like everyone. I really appreciate it. Plus, Tina and Amy have incredible chemistry with this. I love that at some point it's predicted that Amy's gonna die in a boat accident, but she's still gonna like go kayaking. I think the sketch has so many things, and it's just so odd of where these people they don't like know the future. They could just predict it. I really enjoy the sketch show. It will be my first live sketch choice for my episode.
Okay, Nicole, since this was probably on your board, would love to get your thoughts on Meet Your Second Wife.
Yeah, me and TJ were just always having the same picks, I suppose. That was very high on my list. I love that one. I always go back to it. And it is that like very sharp feminist humor that you're right. It's something that women observe and catch. And then, the rest, everyone else is like, oh, that is funny and really worth noting. But also it's just like, it's very high up on my list. So I'm sad, but good choice.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so that concludes the first half of the first round. So just to update all of you who are watching along, off the board right now are 3 live sketches: Black Jeopardy, Celebrity Jeopardy, and Meet Your Second Wife. And the only pre-tape off the board right now is Farewell, Mr. Bunting. So I think for me, I've been waffling a little bit. I think that I'll just be open with my strategy. I think it's more important for me to pick something early from categories that I think are thinner. Because I think that's where I'm like, I really want to make sure I grab something strong. So I think I'm going to start off with picking what I believe is probably the undisputed greatest cold open of all time. Give me Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, season 17's Steve Martin cold open, because I think there was no way that was ever going to get back to me. And if you missed this sketch and want to go back and watch it, this is really, Steve Martin, one of the kings of hosting in the 70s. He comes back a few times, but this is really like, hey, Steve Martin is back and he's connecting with the new cast. He goes behind the scenes. I love it when we break format on SNL and go meta. For me, there's no better way to open up a Saturday Night Live episode than with this ultimate classic, season 17, episode 9, Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight. To me, this is ultimate SNL. Haskell, did I take your pick?
Yeah, I wasn't going to get back to you because on the turn of the round, it would have been my first pick or my second pick, and they're essentially the same thing. I love when we go the top row of people who like don't know SNL existed before 2009, and we have like all of these things available. I should have known. I do have like a couple of people in front of me that are going to take some sketches that are more classic that I'm going to lose out on. I really thought that was going to fall to me. I thought there was going to be a run of live sketches, pre-tapes. It was going to get to me. Really disappointed that it didn't.
Haskell, did you say that we're people who don't know SNL existed before 2009?
Ageism.
It's true about
ageism.
No, guys, hold on. Let him answer. Let him answer. I let him answer. I just want to see.
Yeah, that's almost an exact quote.
Wait, so it was 2009 is the year you said?
Yeah.
Shit, that is so accurate. Like, you got me dead to rights.
We're canceling Haskell based on counts of ageism.
Don't expect many Tim Kazurinsky sketches going to TJ tonight.
Oh, really? We're still with the Tim Kazurinsky thing? So what? He's the married a monkey guy? Okay, no, we're not doing this.
Oh,
we're not doing arcs on the S. This has been 3 podcasts that has been.
People don't forget.
Okay, let's keep going. We have to head over to Sammy Kay for his first pick, the 6th overall pick.
John, there's a reason why we're friends, and I think we have a good relationship because we have very similar strategies here as far as how we're going about this draft. And yeah, there are some of these categories that are going to get a little dicey if you wait too long to pick them up. So I'm going to pick something from the cold open category as well. And, Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight was certainly on my list. And the list is not super long because as far as cold opens go, I mean, it's just sometimes it's not the strongest material in the show. But there are iconic moments, plenty of iconic moments, throughout the years. But this one in particular made waves and was a huge moment for as an SNL viewer. Was one that I loved. It was right when I was starting to get like not into politics, but like understand what was going on in politics like a little bit, and it didn't hurt that they had a former SNL cast member come open up the show. I'm going to pick the Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Sarah Palin, Hillary Clinton cold open back from 2008. So I mean that's certainly an all-time classic, and you can argue it's one of the all-time best political cold opens.
I agree. I mean, I had a top 5 list of top 5 cold opens, I think, from the history of the show. And I believe that is one of them back in season 34, episode 1. I remember where I was when I saw that cold open, and I was just like flabbergasted by what I was seeing. And even Bobby talked about it when we had him on for the interview last week, just saying about how he was there in the building. This was his first episode. And just to watch Tina Fey as Sarah Palin was like, what is going on here? And Obama was supposed to appear in that episode, like a lot of really fun things. So Haynes, I would love to go over to you. What are your thoughts on this sketch going to Sammy as his first pick?
I mean, absolutely one of my top cold opens. I had it right at the top of the list. I mean, 2 of my favorite players in SNL history, and it's got plenty of great lines. But to me, when Tina starts miming the Sarah Palin moves, like the turning and like the smile, winking at the camera and turning and like getting the shots, and then she does the shotgun like move, it just gets such a hard laugh. I mean, it's really perfect as far as cold opens go, in that it's surprising and thrilling, and the laughs don't stop. There's no better way to start an episode, so it's pretty gold star pick.
All right, Bill, over to you. You've been waiting patiently. What is your first pick, the 7th overall?
I'm not going to jump on the fear of the cold opens disappearing quite yet. There was only one sketch I knew I had to have, and I was very concerned having 6 people in front of me. Rebecca mentions about the sketches you would show to people who've never seen the show, and this is without a doubt my number 1 pick for that. If I was going to pull somebody out of a cave and show them SNL, got to have more cowbell. It's got to be cowbell. This, to me, is the quintessential SNL sketch. It's, for me personally, it's probably the most quoted sketch between me and my friends, to the point where we quoted it for so many years that we were quoting stuff that wasn't even really quotable, like "Let's just do the thing" and "He speaks for all of us." Like there are so many great lines in this. Walken is so game. Bruce Dickinson, Will Ferrell, cowbell in Parnell's face. Perfect sketch. That's my first pick.
Yeah, this is a really, really good pick. And if you look up many lists about like greatest SNL sketches of all time, this has to be on the top of that list. So this is one I totally agree with. Rebecca, what are your thoughts on Bill taking more cowbell here? And, interesting pick where he took it, because it seems like Haskell was pretty upset as well.
Yeah, that one was starred in I had 3 live sketches starred because I was following that, and that was one of mine. I think it's a classic. It's exactly, you worded it. Like it encompasses all that's SNL, and it's one of those that you can show to a friend and like have them convert, and it's pretty timeless for being an older sketch.
I agree. Well, Haskell, it seems like, picking number 8, I don't know if this was good for you or not, but you do have back-to-back picks. So pick your first choice, and then we'll analyze the first round, and then you'll go again and kick off the second round.
I mean, you still got you. I thought I was going to be left 2 all-timers. Bill ruined that, but you guys still left me an all-time classic. I'm going to go with my first live sketch. I'm going with the debut of Matt Foley, motivational speaker, living in a van down by the river. Perhaps the most iconic single character to ever come out of SNL. Got to go, Matt Foley.
Yeah, this totally makes sense. Chris Farley, obviously being a force. A lot of people do say this is the greatest SNL sketch of all time. Some people enjoy other versions of Matt Foley as well. Obviously, this was a recurring character we did discuss over the summer in our podcast we did on the greatest recurring characters of all time. And yeah, just, what's there to say about Farley that hasn't already been said? Gone for 25 years right now, and it's crazy to think about. But he just was like an incredible cast member on the show, probably one of the best, most skilled SNL sketch performers of all time. And this is an all-time sketch. So Haskell, even though you were picking 8th, you ended up with a very good one. Sammy, what do you think here about Haskell taking the first and original Matt Foley?
I think people would be really upset if that sketch somehow was not picked in the first round. It's definitely a first round pick sketch. As someone who first got into SNL by having all the best of DVDs and trying to collect as many as I could, use my allowance on or whatever money my parents gave me. This is one on the Chris Farley DVD that I would watch over and over again. Just the way that like David Spade and Christina Applegate in the sketch are doing everything they can not to break. It is, one of those sketches that you have to show a friend to say like, this is what SNL is all about. So really good pick, Haskell.
Really, really good pick here. So let's recap our first round of the draft. And in the first round, 2 cold opens were taken by Sammy and I. I took Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, season 17. Sammy took Tina and Amy's Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton, season 34, episode 1. Then we had 5 live sketches go off the board. Nicole took Black Jeopardy. Haynes took Celebrity Jeopardy. TJ took Meet Your Second Wife. Bill took More Cowbell. And Haskell took Matt Foley. We have 1 pre-tape off the board. Rebecca took Farewell, Mr. Bunting. So, Haskell, let's fill out more of your rundown with your second pick, the first pick of the second round.
Yeah, so again, the plan always was here was to then turn to a cold open. The 2 cold opens that I had earmarked here are gone, so I'm not going to panic. I'm just going to stay on this iconic thing. I'm going to do my first pre-tape, my favorite SNL sketch of all time. I'm going with Dick in a Box.
Yeah, that is, for me, that would have definitely come across my board, and I would have probably snagged it when I could. But yes, this is, to me, the ultimate SNL pre-tape and one of the greatest of all time, with Justin Timberlake and Andy Samberg, and so many incredible stories we heard about them writing this together, and people know my affinity for these guys. But yeah, this is also a recurring characters too. They had follow-ups with Mother Lover and Three-Way with Lady Gaga. So this has been, this is just really a great one, and one that you'll see in all of the SNL specials. So, TJ, what do you think about Haskell going ahead here with Dick in a Box?
I mean, objectively, I respect it. It is, more of a classic. I just think by this point, because of everything else Alone Island has done, and I'm a massive fan of them, I think Dick in a Box is kind of weak, some of their weakest work. I love Mother Lover and Three-Way way more. So for me, I'm like, you can have it. Like you can take it. Oh wait, does that make those characters ineligible as well? Or does it, wait,
Yes.
hold on. Does that make the full Lonely Island ineligible, or just
No.
those characters?
No, you can pick other digital shorts, but you can't pick you can't pick Mother Lover or Three-Way.
Okay, yeah. So
They-
I don't
they're
know. To me, Mother Lover is much stronger. So you made a good pick taking those characters off the board, though. I'll give you that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so Haskell has his first live sketch and pre-tape. Bill, where are you going to go with your second pick?
I'm going to go with the ultimate monologue, something that happened 32 years ago. Oh, I see your face, John. Where something that is still used today was used in the spring. It was the first time it was mentioned. It was really meta and became kind of ate itself. It was so big and still exists today. Talking, of course, about season 16, Tom Hanks joining the Five Timers Club, getting his jacket on the stage, meeting the young Conan O'Brien at the door, and talking to Paul Simon, Mr. Steve Martin, and Elliot Gould. Started quite a tradition, something that when we get a new five-timer, we now almost expect it. And when it happened in the spring with Mulaney, it was a huge deal. So that is going to be my monologue. Tom Hanks, season 16, five-timer.
Yeah, this is a monologue that would have been taken by me in 2 picks from now if Bill didn't go ahead and take it. So this was, to me, the ultimate SNL monologue and the standard at which a lot of monologues try to attain. And I just love how they broke this down. But yeah, this is great for Bill, who now puts together a lineup of the Five Timers original monologue going into More Cowbell. So that's starting to build a good episode here for Bill. Nicole, what do you think about the original Five Timers monologue?
I mean, it covers a lot of bases. It's such a classic, but then it also, I feel like it's when we're thinking about an episode, it's like we want it to feel, we haven't really talked yet about that, of what we're trying to feel. And so I think when you can feel something from multiple eras, so for something that was both from a long time ago, but also relevant to people who have been fans of the show at every point of it, at least since that point on. You know, it's not just something from a long time ago that like lives in that moment. It's like it's created this whole thing since then, you know, and then with Tom Hanks, we see him all the time still. So I think that's a very good pick, not just a classic moment in time, but also something that like paved the way for, you know, Tom Hanks on SNL, for the Five Timers Club and what it means. So I think that's a stellar pick. And again, the strategy of that you're saying, John, too, of like starting, you know, prioritizing those thinner categories is smart, and something I might self-sabotage and not do, but smart.
Let's head over to Sammy Kay for his second pick.
All right. So, this is tough. I think I'm gonna dive into the live sketch category because, you know, if I'm being true to myself, you know, there are, you know, a number of sketches, you know, where if I don't get at least one of these kind of personal favorites to me, I'm gonna feel like, you know, I didn't cast my ultimate episode of the show. I gotta stay true to me, and I gotta pick a sketch that I think is a modern classic, one that you know, you take a look at this person's career on the show, and the fact that he did this in his last season as a cast member on SNL in a bit of a transitional year where, you know, people had recently left, big names, you know, such as Kristen Wiig and Andy Samberg had left the previous year. And, you know, in the season premiere of, I'm thinking it's season 38, if I have that right, Seth MacFarlane is hosting, and you have the Puppet Class sketch starring Bill Hader as Anthony Peter Coleman. This is just, if you want to take a look at Bill Hader's kind of what made him such a great SNL cast member, you know, this I think embodies that the best almost out of any sketch. Like, it's hard to find another sketch that really embodies why he was so great, why he was such a glue guy, being able to kind of step up a lot during that season, you know, during that transitional time, and create this sketch, which I think is a modern classic where, you know, they're all making their puppets, and he's got this just intense, you know, Vietnam vet puppet who's always talking about his time in Grenada. And I quote this one of my friends still to this day. So I'm going with Puppet Class for my live sketch. And I'm going to place this, I think I'm going to place this first in the night.
Okay, so Sammy's rundown looks like he has the Tina and Amy, Sarah Palin, and Hillary Clinton cold open, and then his first live sketch of the night is Hader's Puppet Class, the Anthony Peter Coleman. So TJ, you seemed like this was on your board as well. What do you think?
It was actually, that Seth MacFarlane episode is one of my favorite of all time, actually. And I had that Puppet Class episode. It wasn't crazy high, but that is one I do rewatch a lot that I really enjoy. And I love doing the Anthony Peter Coleman, like I just like in my own like spare time, like by myself. I think it's a very funny sketch, and I love the silliness of the voices, especially when at one point Bill Hader's puppet starts hitting on Vanessa Bayer's puppet, and like they start making out. And I'm like, what is happening here? These are puppets, and so it's a great pick. And I think this what these drafts show us is that we've never had an original idea about SNL fandom in our lives, like at all. Like we're all like, oh yeah, no one's ever gonna think to pick this special little sketch that I love. No, we're all basic as hell in the SNL fandom, and yeah, it's just reminding me like, oh yeah, these people they like some of the cool things I like too, and so this is you know, it's a little hard. I feel a little too seen right now, John.
That's very well done. So there are a lot of things that I've looked at for this draft, and a lot of sketches, a lot of pre-tapes that I want to take. But I think that the depth there, like I said, is so strong. There's so many good live sketches, so many recurring, so many pre-tapes over the years. So I think I'm going to nail a few of these later on. So for me, I still think it's important for me to pick the monologue here that I really want to pick. And then, you know, Bill took the one off the board that I would have taken here, and I can't risk my next favorite monologue going. And I don't know, you know, I'm curious what our listeners would think when it comes to this monologue, because it's one that's often replayed. But for me, I know when I saw it for the first time, I was not like, I couldn't have had more fun. Like for me, it was very exciting. So I'm going to go with something in season 37. We had Jimmy Fallon come back and host SNL for the first time. And he does this Christmas monologue where he's singing and he goes backstage. And it's really fun because he actually, there like a long time ago when he was a cast member, there was a prediction that Jimmy Fallon was going to be hosting this episode years earlier. And he ends up bringing that up in the monologue. This like crazy thing that was just like, and like nobody really, I don't know what the real story is. Like if that was, sort of like, hey, remember when we said that? Like, well, we should actually make that happen. Like, I don't know how that all came together, but like years and years later, it was like, hey, this weird thing came true. So he hosted then, and then, he comes back, and Jimmy, love him or hate him, I mean, he was just so much fun and a burst of energy for the entire cast, who was still like, going through a little bit of a transition point, was bringing in some new cast members, and he goes backstage and is just playing music with everybody. So I know I have like two very similar things back to back, but for me, like if I'm going to show anybody SNL and explain why SNL is great, like give me Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight into Jimmy Fallon's monologue where they're going backstage and having fun with different generations of cast. So for me, as I'm building my ultimate episode, I didn't want to risk something so modern in a thinner category being taken from me by the row above. So that is where I'm going to go in this one. Bill, what do you think about that pick?
Great minds think alike, John, because even though I picked a different one, this was something along with the Not Gonna Phone It In that I showed my daughter recently. As leading up to the Steve Martin episode, I wanted to show her some of the older stuff that he had done, and the Jimmy Fallon monologue is so fantastic, especially for the holiday season. And she loved them both. She's become a big backstage fan already. No llama yet, but yeah, no, this is what you're looking for with the monologue, and kind of, we've talked so much the last two-ish seasons about the personal monologues and how great they are. But this is something that we're missing, that we could get every 4 or 5 episodes, doing something, going backstage, singing, doing these wonderful things. So I think it's a great pick.
Okay, so my monologue and cold opener off the board, and then I'll head towards looking at pre-tapes and sketches coming up. But TJ, it is your turn for your second pick.
Thank you, sir. All right, so I am trying to think, what would Nicole do, just so I can avoid those little potential mishaps of her stealing my things. So I think I'm gonna do what some of us need to do right now, which is just ignore Nicole. And I'm gonna go with I'm just gonna get this out the way. I don't think anyone's gonna do it, so I'm just gonna do it so I can be secure. No one's gone for it yet. And I just don't want to risk it being taken. So I am going to choose my weekend update host. And because no one's picked their weekend update host yet. And I am going to go with the lovable, the warm. I can't believe I'm about to do this. I need Cecily Strong as my weekend update host. Now, granted, yes, does that leave a wide pool? Of course. Did she only do it for 6 months? Absolutely. Do I care? No. Because if she would have, because in her 6 months of doing it, I felt like she had her own fingerprint of doing it. She did it with 2 different, I think she did it with Seth and with Colin. And like, I feel like, Cecily has her own fantastic point of view. And while she may not have personally loved doing it, and I would never make her like work if she didn't want to do it, I think she's incredible. And for this magic show that I get, if she can be in the chair, I would pick Cecily Strong to be my weekend update host.
Okay, are you picking her with Colin or with Seth?
Oh wait. So I have to pick the pairing. I thought I was only picking the. Oh, interesting.
Because she never did it by herself. She never did it by herself. So
yeah, no. I know she never did it by herself. I thought I was only picking just one of the correspondents. Good question. I'm gonna say with Colin, because there's something about because then Colin still grows and he gets better. Colin gets better with age. He's a great punching bag, but he's an amazing joke teller. He has that boyish charm. They're both very good looking, beautiful people. Like I feel like I have like a really like wonderful show if Colin Jost is there. And so I feel like, having him added to my episode, he's gonna be writing in the background. And since I might not have as many Cecily focused characters, I think this is a strong play for my own. So I'm gonna. So does that mean I get to take Jost too? Like Jost is gone off the board?
No, Jost and Shay are still available.
Okay.
If you, yeah.
All right. So yeah, I'm gonna do Joe Cecily.
Okay. Perfect. So season 39 is Jost and Cecily. So Haskell, I want to go to you on this. What do you think about TJ's strategy here?
Oh, full season.
What do I think about his strategy, or what do I think about his pick? Because those are
Both.
two very different things.
Both.
Good strategy, right? Like when you want to talk about things that are kind of thin, like there are a couple people that are at the top of the mountain of Weekend Update anchors. Choosing a team that stayed together for only a few months and then was replaced in an era that like Colin Jost had not figured it out yet at all and was like universally like despised at the time, I would not have gone with.
Okay.
Oh well.
I mean,
All right,
I'm making the episode I want to make.
You could smell Haskell's shit talk coming about 3 miles away.
Yeah, no, like
that's funny. Okay. Rebecca, over to you for your second pick. Just to remind the listeners, you took Farewell, Mr. Bunting with your first pick.
Yeah, I guess like so far my theme has been a little bit dark because Farewell, Mr. Bunting is not necessarily the most lively of sketches, and I guess a lot of people have been talking about saying true to you and not necessarily what might be universally well known. And as someone who's very politically charged, cold opens are one of my favorite parts of the episode. And I think I would be, if I didn't choose this, it would be because I thought it might not everyone would agree with it, but I have to, for my own sake, choose this as my cold open sketch. The election week with Kate McKinnon singing Hallelujah as Hillary Clinton. I think this was the chilling cold open. Yes, there was not a joke to be seen in it, but even as I was on the Kate McKinnon like retrospective career on SNL episode, and this was the number one thing talked about. I think this cemented her career as not only an SNL cast member, but just as kind of an icon. So that's my pick for cold open.
Interesting, because this was a very, I would say, controversial cold open in the SNL streets, where a lot of people, obviously there's a huge amount of Kate fans out there, but a lot of people felt like Kate broke SNL in a way with this cold open, where she sort of became, it like the facade of them playing characters or versions of impressions sort of broke down. So it's interesting because you obviously, Rebecca, fall on the side of like this was something you loved and that you would want to see in your SNL, and I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners feel the same way, that they feel like you can't completely separate the person from the characters that they're playing on the show. And I think if that's how you feel about the show, then this cold open is perfect for you.
And at the same time, this is coming to end an election period, which was in recent history one of the most people felt the most passionate and most just upsetting in all sides of everything political, like election runs. And I think the cold opens on SNL that season leading up until this point were getting a lot of feedback as very reflection of what's going on in the world, because it kind of was a scenario in which it seemed like nobody was happy, no matter who you were. Like either way of things, it was just crazy political times. And this kind of ended that run on SNL. And I know even still we're like, so many political things. Do we need to see an impression of this person when it's not even relevant in the news right now? But this was an emotional election period for everyone, no matter whose side you fell on, emotions were high. And I think this sketch, this cold open kind of ending it all, like, yes, it's controversial, but at the same time, I think people were feeling emotions all around. And even though this is very leaning towards one side, I think it was reflecting of everyone's kind of emotions of the period.
All right, Sammy, what do you think about Rebecca's pick here?
I mean, it's certainly an interesting pick because I feel like, kind of like what's said here, in the SNL community, it's like, people have a lot of different feelings about this and about how it's not, there's not a joke, in the sketch, but, there are countless amount of times throughout SNL's history where instead of going for the joke, especially in the cold open, they go for capturing a moment. And I think this certainly captured a moment and how a lot of people were feeling. So, I think in that regard, it's a good pick. It's certainly an iconic sketch.
Okay, Haynes, over to you, who picked in his first round Celebrity Jeopardy.
Sorry, I'm still processing that last pick.
It's emotional.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and yeah, I have to say this first. The important thing here is that like we all respect each other as human beings. You know, like
You're not getting jokes.
no, I'm just saying like Rebecca's awesome, but after that cold open, I was like, am I never gonna watch SNL again? Like that's how bad I
Oh
hate
my
it.
God! Stop being so dramatic.
The drama.
It was a whole other episode. Whatever.
It was just I mean I call me crazy. I watch for comedy, but listen. All right,
Oh wow, he's so original. Wait,
that's
hold on.
what I'm saying.
I wasn't muted when I said it.
Okay, I am going to. I'll go with a cold open since we seem to be going through cold opens right now. I am not going to build this up too much, and I promise I won't pick Will Ferrell all night. But on October 7th, 2000, the first presidential debate between Al Gore and George W. Bush. I mean, this is an all-time great cold open. We've got Lockbox over and over and over again. It ends on that incredible strategery. People seem to focus a lot on strategery. We forget about how much gold there was in between. When they throw up that quote from George W. Bush about like sex and movies and something, and it's just like completely every two child I did. And he's like, yeah. And they ask him, what do you mean by that? And he says, pass. And then they put it up on the screen and he has to read it. Listen, this is top to bottom. I mean, it's 10 minutes long and and you're there for every second of it. I think this is as good as a political cold open as there ever has been. So yeah, that's my pick.
It's honestly a really great pick and is probably peak Daryl Hammond. Like just as you know, his sketch is known for Will Ferrell, but Daryl's amazing in it too. And to me, this is one of those cold opens that was at the top of my board as well. If I hadn't gone where I wanted to go, Haskell, you seem to be nodding along. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this is what I had at the top. It's not the first presidential debate that SNL ever did, but it is the best presidential debate sketch that SNL ever did. When people watch regular debates on TV around election cycle and they go, I wonder what SNL is going to do with this. This is what they're referring to. Like, this is what people have in their mind on like, how is SNL going to take the debate, not just repeat back the crazy stuff that was said, actually turn it into jokes and into a premise. And yet still, oddly enough, like really strike home on these characters that the candidates are. So was right there at the top, number 2 or 3 on my list for cold opens.
Okay, Nicole, you kicked off things in the first round with the first overall pick, selecting Black Jeopardy. You have back-to-back picks here, but let's start off with the final pick in the second round.
Yep. So far I'm not to, knock on wood, but so far I'm feeling good about what I have left, There's we'll see, it'll get more heated in later rounds. But I am going to now pick my last sketch of the night. It's a live sketch and the last moment of the night, and it's going to be Gilda Radner and Steve Martin dancing in the dark. And I think that one, I'm like actually choked up now. But it just is such a beautiful moment. And then the history that came after, like when Gilda died and Steve hosted that night and played that sketch during his monologue, there was this part of me, and maybe this is still allowed. I don't think it's still allowed, but I almost thought about choosing that monologue to kind of cheat to get like a 2 for 1. But I feel like it was just this moment would just be too perfect at the end of the episode. To sort of dance the night away. And so I did not choose that monologue. I wanted to give the sketch just its own moment, like standing on its own, but also, steeped in the history that came after. And I think it's cool to like look back on something that is so historical, but also then like you get choked up thinking about what came after, even though what came after now is also like feels so long ago. So I just love that one. And I love Gilda so much. And Steve, obviously, I love. We've been talking about him a lot recently since he just hosted with Marty. So that will be my final sketch of the night.
It's a perfect sketch to pick, and I'm glad that somebody took it off the board tonight because it's very emotional, right? And it's one of those things that we talked all throughout, and we're going to continue to talk throughout this draft about like if you're going to show an episode of SNL like to kids or to somebody who's never seen it before, like where do you want to start, right? And you have to include some level of emotion because SNL is emotional too. So, I mean, maybe not for Haynes, but for everybody else. So, I think, Bill, I'd like to go to you on this one. I'd love to know what you think about Nicole's pick here.
Love this pick so much. Definitely was on my list. Actually, had it in my monologues, as Nicole was pointing out. The fact that the fact that Steve was hosting the exact night that Gilda passed, and they played this. This was the gold standard of recognizing someone who had been on SNL, and why the placards don't work for me. I understand Guild is an all-timer, and that was, but the sketch itself was perfect. From going from stage to stage, having these people freeze on stage, the camera work that was done, getting to see more of 8H than we usually did back in 1978 was perfect from beginning to end. So perfect pick.
Okay, that finishes up 2 rounds. Let's recap where we are in the draft. So Nicole's rundown includes Black Jeopardy and Dancing in the Dark. Haynes has Strategery and Celebrity Jeopardy. Rebecca has Hallelujah and Farewell, Mr. Bunting. TJ has Meet Your Second Wife, and Cecily and Colin hosting Weekend Update. I have Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight and Jimmy Fallon's Christmas Monologue. Sammy has Tina and Amy's Cold Open as Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton, and also Hader's Puppet Class. Bill has Tom Hanks's Monologue and More Cowbell, and Haskell has Matt Foley and Dick in a Box. So, Nicole, over to you for kicking off our 3rd round of the draft.
Yes, well, I'm actually still like choked up, but I'm going to go into something more silly. And this when I was saying when I was thinking of my first pick, something that is just my favorite thing versus what I thought would be more of like a first round gotta steal it. I'm happy with my choice to take Black Jeopardy first round because the pre-tape now that I want to take is still available. It is something I constantly find myself going back to, this theme of what are you going to show somebody who has never seen the show or hasn't watched it in 10 years and is like, oh, I don't know. This is always like, boom, like we're on YouTube and I'm showing someone this sketch. It's so funny. It's so stupid, but also so deep. It's like, it's deep and it's dumb, which is just perfect. It's one of my favorite hosts. I think just about everyone on here loves this host, and we all want her to come back very soon. I hope she does. We know now I'm doing the fun thing where I want you to kind of guess
is it?
what it is. She's been in the building. She's in the family. Okay, now you guys know what I'm saying. So the actress with Emma Stone for a pre-tape, and I'm gonna do. Now I'm not sure where I'm gonna place it like exactly, but I think it's gonna be in the end of the night, like after Update. I'll place the actress. This pre-tape is just, to me, perfect. I love it so much.
Yeah, this is a really good choice. I mean, Emma Stone, obviously, like you said, member of the family. So this is a very interesting pick. DJ, you have any memories of the actress Emma Stone's pre-tape?
By the time this releases, this will come out. I'm currently dating a woman who literally I just showed her that sketch last night, and because it's one of my go-to sketches constantly as well. And I was like, "Oh, you got to see this! This is so funny." And so it's like number 2 on my board. The amount of times I have just chuckled to myself because I remember when Emma Stone walks into the room, she trips for like a second, looks at the ground, looks up, turns back to the camera and laughs and just says, lube, has made me laugh more times than it is like reasonably acceptable. Like it is like it has lived rent free in my head. It's a fantastic pick for a sketch. It was like number 2. It was my second pick. And again, just telling me I've never had an original thought in my entire life. It's fantastic. Emma Stone, to be honest, Emma Stone for myself, I don't know about anyone else, I could care less, but for myself, she has a lot of stuff that like could go up on my board. Like she's a fantastic host. I think she's great.
All right, Haynes, over to you for your next pick.
I almost made this my first overall pick because that's how much it means to me. it's an incredibly influential sketch in my life. I think it's obviously an incredible influential sketch in the world. I don't know that. I mean, everything that happens at any moment in time is a culmination of every action that led to that moment. But I don't know that, one of my other shows that ties for my favorite show of all time would exist without this sketch. And, as Haskell said, there's some focus on some of the more recent years. So I hoped that this would get back to me if we bounced around a little bit, especially when people started taking like really famous sketches. I mean, this is pretty well known, but it's made me laugh as hard as any sketch in the history of time. I don't know why I'm such a sucker for whiteface, but Eddie Murphy's White Like Me is the greatest pre-tape about ever. I mean, there's some good ones. There's a lot of good ones, but White Like Me is unbelievable. And the show that I was referring to when I said might not exist without it is Chappelle's Show. I mean, that's like a predecessor for like what Chappelle's Show would be, top to bottom. I mean, this is just an incredible sketch. You got Eddie Murphy, maybe the greatest cast member of all time, and it's just so damn funny. As he's been studying the butts and how they keep him up real tight and stuff. And then he starts living his life as a white person. He walks into that shop, and the young Jim Downey just gives him the newspaper for free. It's like, oh, and then the party on the bus. I mean, if you haven't seen this sketch, audience, listeners, go watch this right now on YouTube. It's unbelievable. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts.
There's not a lot of sketches that have passed through the Ebersol era into modern, culture and understanding that type of stuff. But I mean, I think this is one of those moments that was really important for early to mid 80s SNL. TJ, was this a sketch that you were going to take?
It was one I was going to use to like shove it in Haskell's face about having seen sketches before 2009. I was going to be, oh yeah, of course I know. Like I watch White Like Me quite a lot because like Haynes hits it like nail on the head. Like I love Chappelle's Show. Like Chappelle's Show is in my DNA as like the way that I think, and White Like Me is just like a cherry on top of that. And so to me, it's one of my favorite like classic sketches. It's one of my favorite. It's up there. It's like in my like probably top 10 like old sketches list. But it's phenomenal. Just the sound of Eddie saying, I want to buy this newspaper. I can't do the voice, but I think it's so much fun because of course that's not what white culture is like, right?
Yeah, there's no newspapers anymore, so that is correct.
Okay. Y'all got real quiet for a second.
No, but that is but TJ, you're right. I mean, that's like the genius of the sketch is that like obviously white culture's not like that, but like to some black people, it may feel like that sometimes. Like that's the way it like looks. So it's like it's just genius. It's
great. And I was like, I really thought I was gonna get it. I was like, no, actually, you know what it was? I was gonna take it because I thought someone from the bottom row was going to grab it. And I was dumb. I forgot. Like Haskell threw me off because he was like everyone in the top row. And I was like, oh, Haynes is one of us. No, he's not. He's not Nicole or Rebecca or I, the youthful ones full of vitality on this show. And John. Yeah, I said what I said. But no, it's a great pick. It's a phenomenal pick. But I'm about to hurt some feelings after Rebecca goes, though.
Okay, well, looking forward to that. But Rebecca is up first. So just to remind you, Rebecca's rundown so far, she opens up with Hallelujah and has Farewell, Mr. Bunting in there as well. Rebecca, what is your next pick?
So my next pick, I'm going to put in the first live sketch category because it's actually come out after the show, like the episode premiered years later, that Standards and Practices was fighting to not put this sketch in the first half of the show due to they would put their more racier content after like 12 o'clock, assuming some of the like more young viewers would drop off. And Lauren actually fought to have this be in the first half of the show. So I have to do it honor by putting it as my first live sketch. And I mean, it's the holiday times and it's just a classic, not only holiday sketch, but just sketch in general. And I'm going to pick Sweaty Balls.
Okay, so sweaty balls goes here. That means all delicious dishes are off the board, and yeah, this is of course like one of the best recurring sketches of all time with the incredible Molly Shannon and Anna Gasteyer here. So yeah, this is a classic and one that I think gets a lot of play. And then the other one that I think gets a lot of play is the Betty White one, where they reprised this back in 2010. So this is a great pick for you, Rebecca. Sammy, I would love to get your perspective on a sweaty ball is going here to Rebecca.
Yeah, this is tough because this is a sketch that I was really toying with picking in the next round or two here. Yeah, as someone who got into SNL around the age of like 12, right? I mean, this is like quintessential. Like, this is so like raunchy and but also silly and gross and really anchored by like just great performances from Mal Shannon and Anna Gasteyer and obviously Alec Baldwin with his raspy voice saying "sweaty balls" is pretty iconic stuff. So I think this is a very, very nice pick.
Okay, TJ said he was going to break some hearts, so you have the opportunity here, TJ. Let me just remind the listeners what's in your rundown so far. It is Meet Your Second Wife and then Cecily and Colin on Update.
Yeah, so you know what? I thought I was gonna break some hearts, but like, I'll be honest with you, I might be making a very dumb decision here, but I'm gonna do something that like feels more right to me because I don't know if Bill has it in his back pocket. I don't know. But I'm gonna pick what actually, fun fact is, it's one of my favorite. It's like one of my top 5 favorite monologues of all time, actually. And it's before 2009. Haskell. I'm gonna be picking a monologue, and I want to have the Don Rickles monologue from his hosted episode. Because in this episode, I believe, honestly, I think it is just like White Like Me. Like, I think like those are two fun. I want to say those are both in the 80s because I know White Like Me is in the 80s. I want to say Don Rickles is 80s as well. That those two pieces back to back are like a wonderful showcase, I think, for just like the 80s. I'm somebody who like didn't learn about Don Rickles until like a few years ago because of a Tom Segura joke years ago. And when I learned who Don Rickles was and that he was more than just Mr. Potato Head, I dove in. I bought his book. I watched some of his like old stand up. Yes, I have a Don Rickles book. It's hilarious. And he's if you don't know who Don Rickles is, he's one of the original roasters. Some might even say, I don't know if there was a direct link, but some might even say if you enjoy Jeff Ross now, go back and watch Don Rickles stuff back in the day. I think, and so the thing I really enjoy about his monologue is he's a stand-up, and so it's a stand-up monologue, but he does a lot of crowd work. He messes with the audience. I'm pretty sure there's a couple like famous people like Steve Madden, or there's I think the president of NBC is in the audience, and he goes up and roasts him and his son. And at one point, the director literally comes on the intercom, and I have no idea if this is scripted or not. It probably was. At some point, the director comes on the intercom and says, Don, we have a lot of show to do. Can you wrap it up? Don then like turns to him and says, I hope you go home to your wife, try to make love and miss. And I swear to God, I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. Telling a man that like, I hope you can't have marital relations. That's crazy, son. So like, I think like it was an amazing, to be honest, I wish there was more Don Rickles material available. I go back and watch his actually, no, it wasn't a Tom Segura joke. It was a Jimmy Fallon bit. Jimmy Fallon had him on late night. And that's how I learned who Don Rickles was. But like, I think it's an amazing showcase. It made me really have an appreciation for somebody that like, I don't think it's lost the time. People know who Don Rickles is, but like, I was like, oh, I'm somebody like young and I get to appreciate this guy. I think it's an incredible monologue. He's so dynamic and so animated. It's a wonderful watch, and I can't recommend it to people enough. Although, we'll say it is in the 80s and it is a white man. So, he does say some things that maybe were more acceptable in the 80s, but like, I still think his performance shines through and for myself moves past that because he even makes some jokes about the brothers. But like, I'll be honest, like he just goes after everyone and he has such fun doing it. And I think it's just a little time capsule that's just, it's beautiful and it's still funny 30 years later.
Yeah, very good pick here. Don Rickles' monologue was actually the longest monologue of all time for a very long time, up until like
really?
the Kays and the Dave Chappelle's. So that one, yeah, it was extremely notable and long, and it is something that's gone replayed. I mean, not to age myself, but this is one of my parents. Yeah, one of my parents' favorite comedians, obviously, is Don Rickles, and told me, I have to watch everything from him as well. So he's one that's been passed around, even though he's not with us anymore. But Bill, jump in here. What do you think about TJ's pick here with Don Rickles' monologue?
warms my heart that TJ knows something before 2009.
Oh my God.
Yes. Listen, I don't know that I've ever discussed this, but Don Rickles may be my all-time favorite comedian. I'm a comedic historian, and I love his old stuff. Some of his comedy albums from the late '60s are available on things like iTunes. He was on Carson all the time, which still plays on Pluto TV, which is free for most people. And yeah, I mean, this when you point at things that can't be said today, people point to Rickles and say, yeah, he got away with it, but it was out of love. And it's hard to explain that because of the way we've fractured and the way that people are sensitive to things, I think, more than they used to be. He went after everybody, but then would hug you and tell you how much he loved you immediately afterwards. There's so much in this monologue. I love watching this episode, one of my favorite SNL episodes of all time.
It's great.
It's John Madden, sir, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Steve Madden's the shoes guy, right?
I'm not sure, but John Madden is.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve Madden is the shoes guy.
Yeah, from like Wolf of Wall Street or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and Brandon Tartikoff was also in the audience, the head of NBC. So
feature host.
I feel like Sammy has something to say.
Okay, let's keep going. So I am up next. We're halfway through our third round of the draft, and I'm going to move forward with taking my update anchor here because I don't think it's getting get back to me if I don't. I'm going to go with Norm Macdonald as my update anchor here. Seth Meyers is my all-time favorite update anchor. I, just loved everything that I got from Seth. But I think if I'm showing the ultimate episode to anybody, it, starts and ends with Norm Macdonald on Weekend Update and just his classic time on there. The guy actually got fired from Weekend Update for continuing to do jokes and pushing stuff behind the scenes. But what a legend. And really I think almost every episode that Norm did update was a hit. So for me, this was a must-have on my list, and I just wanted to snag him before others went to their update picks. So I'm actually going to go to Haynes on this one. Haynes, what do you think about me taking Norm here?
Well, I mean, many people would argue that he's the funniest update host ever. It's an amazing pick. I mean, back during our ultimate cast draft, I drafted the first Weekend Update host, and I picked Seth because for a different reason. Because we were talking about, an ultimate cast. So you're seeing this Weekend Update host every week. I thought, listen, this is a guy that has consistency. He's always going to be there. Norm is amazing, and he kind of lived in that dangerous space, he wasn't going to be there forever. And I absolutely love that about him, and I love his stand-up too. I mean, Norm Macdonald is a genius, and it's obviously an incredibly unique kind of anti-comedy thing that he does. So yeah, I expected that this might be I mean, TJ already had a Weekend Update pick, but I expected that Norm would be the first Weekend Update pick, actually.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I've watched a good handful of Norm's things now, and I maybe it's the smarminess when he does tell a joke, and this ninja is he's chuckling to himself, but the audience clearly isn't with him. What is it about that? And also for me, I don't know, there feels like a paradox to the phrase anti-comedy. What is it about that makes Norm so great? That makes him more than
because
Death on Family Guy.
He would do things that weren't safe, and he would do things. I mean, clearly
many comedians do that.
Yeah, but on Weekend Update, we don't see that a lot anymore. It's also, I think there's something we all, of course, it aged better. In the moment, I don't know that we'd all be sitting around calling ourselves identifying as fans of Norm, but I think not you, but anyone here sitting, if 80% of us would say that about ourselves, I think maybe 30% of us would have said that in the moment when he was an anchor. But there's just something so amazing now looking back on it of he really was just honoring his own creative integrity and doing what he wanted to do. And he knew the risks. He would continue with the way he wanted to do it, even seeing when people weren't laughing, even being threatened with being fired and then ultimately actually being fired. And I think we just don't, people don't do that anymore. So yeah, I mean, I love Norm, and I think it was a good pick. But that's what I feel.
Sorry, my earlier comment about Nicole's nonsensical arguments aside, that was very well said. That was a great argument, and yeah, he's absolutely one of those. He fits that cliche that like some artists really aren't appreciated till they're gone. Like it takes a minute to process like what Norm's doing. Like sometimes in the moment, like I didn't always laugh at his jokes either. I'm kind of like, wait, hang on a second. Especially when you're like first getting into them. Like that's what I'm talking about by anti-comedy. Mm-hmm. Like it landing in that space where like it's not a classical joke style, you know. And he was very genius in that way.
I just might need, some of you guys on the program here to maybe send me a couple of like good ones or something, because I just don't see it. But like I'm open to being changed, to my mind being changed.
Bill?
Let's not forget also, and it's easy to forget because it's a technical point, but they didn't sit on the applause button as much back then. And you see this on the late night shows too with Colbert and Fallon and things. They laugh at everything now. They come out like rock stars and they're cheering for the worst jokes that Che and Joe say. And they didn't do that back then. And I think that part of that is the reason that it doesn't translate as well.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, let's keep going. Let's head over to Sammy Kay for his third pick. As a reminder, for Sammy's team, he has as his cold open Tina and Amy's cold open as Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton, and then Hader's Puppet Class season 38 is his first live sketch. Sammy, where are you going next?
Yeah, I think I'm going to the monologue category because obviously, doing like research and homework for this, there's only so much time in the day. So I had to go kind of sit down and think like, what's like a moment? What's someone that, took that time during the monologue to kind of make a big moment, on the stage. And two things came to my mind immediately. Two former cast members who made great grand returns to the stage. These are two separate, cast members. They didn't host together. And I've been going back and forth on who I want to pick, but I think if I'm being true to myself, that's a running theme for tonight. I got to go with the Sandman. I'm going with Adam Sandler when he came back to host in 2019. What an amazing moment this was for SNL fans and just comedy fans in general who, people of my age grew up with his movies. To be fired from SNL and then going to host many, many years later, something that we thought would never happen because of that history. And then during that monologue, read a song about how he was fired. And it's just such you can tell during that monologue that he was so happy to be back. He brings Chris Rock out to talk about how he was fired, brings Pete Davidson in there. Pete's singing about how he was fired. And he's like, no, Pete, you haven't been fired yet. And, just like a really special moment. That whole episode is really special to me. And I'm really happy I got Adam Sandler's monologue here.
Rebecca, I need to go to you on this one. What are your thoughts?
Sammy, you're killing me. From your cold open till this, like I had this as my next choice to have Adam Sandler, his monologue be my next pick. And I was only worried just about you to be picking this. It's a classic. I mean, it's like the longest of the time from being a cast member to hosting. So that was crazy. And every season it would be like, if we were doing the Saturday Night Network back then, we would have been like, predictions for host of the season, every season would have been, Adam Sandler. And then this was finally the moment. And to just go up there and be like, the reason why I wasn't on the show is because I was fired. Like, it was just very, very on the nose in the funniest way. And I mean, the episode All Up is incredible, but this monologue goes down in my head. It's like my favorite of all time.
Rebecca, I told you I was not here to make friends. So I'm sorry if you're in the crossfire.
I know. It's tough.
All right, let's head over to Bill Kenney for the next to last pick in this round of the draft. He has Tom Hanks's 5-timers monologue, followed by more cowbell. And Bill, what are you going to pick next as part of your rundown?
Well, since Haynes stole my cold open, I hope you don't go to him for his opinion after this, because we know he doesn't like the emotional stuff. I'm going to go with, to me, the most memorable cold open ever. The episode after 9/11. We open with Paul Simon as the boxer singing the boxer, and the shot of the firemen and the police on the stage, still in the Twin Towers dust on their jackets, and it was so somber and so nobody knew what comedy was going to be like. Letterman had come back earlier in the week, and he was so downtrodden, as we all were. So nobody knew what a 90-minute comedy show was going to be. You couldn't make fun of the president. You couldn't. And to open with this very emotional moment with, Paul Simon of all people, but ending with the funny line of Lauren coming out and talking to the now disgraced former mayor and saying, "Can we be funny? And why should you start now?" Just such a great moment in the history of the show. Probably the first time they went this route. They've done it a lot since then, beyond the Hallelujah, doing it with the children's choir and things like that. But just something that really sticks out in my mind. So I'm going with this as my cold open.
I feel like we have to head over to our native New Yorker on this one, so I'll go to Nicole.
Yeah, this one I thought about, and it was definitely in my top 3 of cold opens I was going to choose. You said it perfectly, Bill. I think it was just helping us in general set the tone for how to move forward as a city, as a country, as individual people. And so to be so somber and emotional, and then to just deliver the most perfectly toned, perfectly timed joke at the end. And Giuliani now is disgusting and disgraced, but we have to say at that time he was this symbol of strength and unity and grace and just like comfort in New York. That has to be said. I can't emphasize that enough. As a New Yorker who was there, I was young, but I was there. Not at age, but I was within a mile from there. So that was just, when you think of moments throughout SNL's history, and you think of moments throughout American history and how SNL has been there for those moments and impacted those moments and helped America through them. It's just, it's really something. And so I think that's a perfect choice, and it shows how influential SNL has been to just greater American culture and politics, really, as well. So perfect choice, and a good balance of like the emotion and also ultimately, at the end of the day, comedy and humor and joy throughout the most insane circumstances.
Let's head over to Haskell for his final pick in the 3rd round.
All right. Well, everything I was talking about. For my pick, I'm going to go to the year 2009. I'm going to go with my favorite way they've ever ended a season that wasn't like an official send-off for a cast member. I'm going to go with Good Night, Saigon. Just a great way to end a season, to end an episode. It is a cameo explosion. You get the whole cast in there. Will Ferrell is phenomenal in it. So it's one of my favorite all times. It is technically like the send off for Daryl Hammond, but it's not an official like send off sketch where they're saying goodbye to him. And it just gets everybody involved. It's a great way to end the night. I am going to put it in my last sketch of the night slot. And Good Night, Saigon.
Yeah, this is a great choice. Actually, this is the sketch that I had it in my notes, and I kept wanting to bring it up this week when we were talking about singing goodbyes and moments and stuff like that. I just never had a chance to. But this is also one of my favorite moments in the history of the show, and I love everything that happened here. But Sammy is just perturbed, so I'm going to head over to Sammy. What do you?
This was one where I was like, I feel like I can get it later on this draft. This is one that was in my if I have to get certain sketches, I'm going to be upset if I don't have these sketches in my lineup. And this was one of them. This is a sketch that I feel like is not really talked about a lot and hasn't really lived on as much as you'd like it to in modern times, just because of, I think, music rights. It's a sketch that's hard to find because they're using an existing song. But it's one of those sketches where every time a cast member leaves, I always go back and I find it on Daily Motion or anywhere where you can find it. I find this sketch because it, me and Haskell, same age, started watching SNL around similar times. Like, I should have known that I was not going to be able to, let this one sit for too long. If anyone were to get it, though, Haskell, happy it was you. But I am upset.
Okay, let's recap where we are after 3 rounds of the draft. So Nicole's rundown includes Black Jeopardy, Dancing in the Dark, and The Actress. Haynes includes Strategery, Celebrity Jeopardy, and White Like Me. Rebecca has Hallelujah, Sweaty Balls, and Farewell, Mr. Bunting. TJ has Don Rickles' Monologue, Meet Your Second Wife, and Cecily and Colin on Update. I have Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, Jimmy Fallon's Monologue, and Norm MacDonald on Update. Sammy has Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton's Cold Open. Adam Sandler has his Adam Sandler's Monologue and Haters Puppet Class. Bill has the 9/11 tribute, Tom Hanks Monologue, and More Cowbell. Haskell has Matt Foley, Dick in a Box, and Goodnight Saigon. So let's start up round 4 of the draft with Haskell. Over to you.
All right, so I had an idea I wanted to kind of flip and just load up on a pre-tape in a live sketch, but my pre-tape list is looking pretty good. So I'm going to jump in where it's a little weaker. I'm going to go with Seth Meyers on Weekend Update. After Norm, I think he's the second best who's ever held the desk by himself. I am selecting him by himself, his solo run. He just understood what Weekend Update was all about, and he's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, I'm such a big fan of Seth, and obviously had the longevity as well up until Jost and Shay in the middle of last year where they finally overtook him. But obviously head writer, amazing job on Weekend Update. And people really were not sure how it would work with after Amy Poehler left the show. Would Seth Meyers do great by himself? And he just crushed it and anchored that part of the show for years to come. So great pick by you, Haskell. I'm going to head over to Haynes on this one. What do you think of Haskell's pick here?
I mean, yeah, obviously great pick for Weekend Update host. I picked him during the Ultimate Cast draft. I think we all know how talented he is. He's doing amazing on late night. He's my favorite late night host. So yeah, it's just a great pick.
All right, Bill, you are next up. And right now you have the 9/11 tribute as your cold open. You have Tom Hanks's Monologue and More Cowbell. Where are you going to go with your 4th pick?
Part of the strategery here has to be not only fighting you 7 brilliant people, but making sure that I get a good mix of the entire, section of the show. So I'm going all the way back to season 1, and most definitely a sketch they would never, ever, ever do today, as brilliant as it was. And I'm, of course, talking about word association. Richard Pryor hosting, sitting down with Chevy Chase. He's at a job interview, and they start doing word association: dog, tree, fast, slow, white, black, and then it just evolves from there into every word I would never say and can't say, until Pryor goes after Chevy by calling him a cracker and a honky, and eventually when he says the ultimate terrible word, he says dead honky. And Chevy hires him and pays him 3 times more than any janitor is paid in the entire country. So brave in 1975 to do something like this. Late night basically didn't exist other than Carson, who was just milquetoast. And here we were 5 or 6 episodes into this new daring show, and they didn't care what they were doing, and they kind of put America on its head. So I'm going with word association.
Yeah, I think as far as the context in which this sketch plays is really fascinating, because this is at a point where SNL is like just starting to figure out the format of what really works. And then they bring in Richard Pryor, who's like the most amazing stand-up comic. And it's just really fascinating to get to see his run on the show that night. And obviously, the first Black host that we get in the history of the show. And, there was obviously a question, right? I mean, Garrett Morris was the only Black cast member. There was not a lot of Black people in the writer's room. So when Richard Pryor comes in, it's like, can they do Richard Pryor-like things on Saturday Night Live? And they did. And that sketch has lived on for generations and for decades as being a very foundational sketch for a lot of people. So I think it's an important sketch to show people, even though they would never do a sketch like that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like iconic moments that set the show up for success. Like there was just leading into the episode, like you go back and you read about it, it was like, can they get Pryor to do this? Pryor at the time, one of the top stand-ups in the world, like he is what you associate with stand-up comedy. They get him on the show. They talk about like, adding a more of a delay on the show so that they could kind of edit things out. And then to still let this sketch play out the way they did, it's pivotal comedy of all time. It's pivotal. Like if you mention Richard Pryor for everything that he did in his stand-up and his movie career, I bet a lot of people go back to this sketch first. It's such an iconic moment for the show. And really, like you said, and like Bill said, for it to happen so early in the run, it really did set the standard for what SNL was in that late night time slot.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, we're going to head over to Sammy for his fourth pick. So far, Sammy's team has Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton's Cold Open, Adam Sandler Monologue, and then Hader's Puppet Class.
Yeah, still pretty shell shocked from the Good Saigon sort of thing. No pun intended. But I'm looking at my list and I am seeing a lot of recent stuff. And I feel like I want to go back. A couple years, a couple decades, really, and pick a sketch featuring some of my favorite recurring characters of all time. Again, these are characters that they did a ton on the show, and there's one particular rendition of this that I think everyone has their favorite, but I think a lot of people really say this is like one of the best that they did. And for my money, these characters star in the best SNL movie. And I know we're talking about sketches here, but I'm going with Wayne's World, specifically the Tom Hanks Aerosmith rendition of Wayne's World. I mean, Dana Carvey and Mike Myers are two of the greats, and this is one that it was either on the Dana Carvey best of or the Mike Myers best of or both. But I remember watching this a ton as a kid. I love Wayne and Garth when they're saying, obviously the classic "You're not worthy," but to Aerosmith in this sketch is just an iconic moment. So I'm going with Wayne's World for my next pick.
Yeah, so this was a really interesting pick, Sammy, because I was struggling so hard today. And I spoke to all of you in the pre-show about could we select potentially a sketch as a cold open, and I know how many Wayne's World cold opens there were. So I was thinking about selecting them and then flexing them either into my cold open or into one of my sketches. And I wasn't really sure, but the truth is that this is probably this, or maybe the Madonna version are the versions that you sort of think of when it comes to the Wayne's World sketches. And the problem is that they're both not cold opens for me, and I really wanted to get my cold open early, and I risked potentially Wayne's World going to somebody else. So Sammy, this makes perfect sense here. Haynes, what do you think about Sammy's pick here with Wayne's World?
I mean, something Wayne's World had to get picked at some point for the live sketches. They're just so iconic. As he mentioned, maybe the best SNL movie or movie to come from an SNL sketch. And of course, this one in particular, like the way they dress, the music they're into, like Aerosmith is. I mean, this is the ultimate kind of band for them to have on. Maybe Guns N' Roses would have also been on that kind of level as far as what these characters were into. So, and Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, just top of their game. People don't mention Mike Myers enough anymore when they talk about great SNL cast members. That's the way I feel. Dana Carvey, rightly so, still gets talked about. Maybe it's because he's doing a podcast, but people leave Mike Myers off sometimes, and he was so good in so many different roles. But this series of sketches are obviously incredible, and this is a perfect pick.
Over to me for my fourth pick here. And I'm going to start off by, first I'm going to go through my rundown. So I'm not going to phone it in tonight, the cold open, Jimmy Fallon's Monologue, and I also have Norm Macdonald on Update. And it's about damn time that I picked my live sketch. And this is something that I'm going to pick my favorite sketch of all time, because I would literally never podcast again if this was not on my list tonight. It's the sketch that I show all of my friends because this to me is the introduction to Saturday Night Live. I just always wish I could go back to this moment when I was watching my personal, maybe not the best, but my personal favorite episode of Saturday Night Live back in March 24th, 2007, season 32, when I got to see the brilliant Will Forte as the dancing coach in Locker Room Motivation with Peyton Manning. And it's just something, it's one of those ones you just have to watch it and see as this entire cast of legends, like golden era cast members, are just dying at Will Forte dancing around the set, and then Peyton Manning dancing with him. And this is the first of two of these versions. We're going to get one with Michael Phelps at the start of season 34. But for me, Will Forte is an all-time great, and this is a sketch I absolutely had to have on my rundown. So this is, for me, part of the ultimate SNL experience. Rebecca, do you remember this sketch? What are your thoughts?
It's one of those, I know we keep repeating this, but you're going to show your friend this sketch to be like, this is just good, fun SNL. And it kind of, yes, it was SNL in the heyday. And it's one of those where everyone is like trying not to break around, which makes the audience laugh even more, I think, specifically in the Peyton Manning version. So I think it's a classic and a really solid choice, as I think your first live sketch. Yeah.
It is my first live sketch. So I'm going to head over to TJ for his next pick. And TJ's rundown right now looks like Don Rickles' Monologue, followed by Meet Your Second Wife, and Cecily and Colin on Weekend Update.
I know I would enjoy the hell out of my show. I would definitely say that much. And I'm gonna hurt some feelings. I can't believe that the boys at the bottom let this one slip on by. And it's also okay, because you might have been faked out because of Haskell earlier on in his pick. But I'm gonna go with something that I think is a song of triumph, something that's musical. It's a pre-tape. Something that I know for myself, it plays in my head multiple times, and gave Good Lovin' an anthem, a triumphant anthem that it needed from the boys of the Lonely Island. I'm going with I Just Had Sex, the pre-tape, one of the catchiest, I know for myself, one of the catchiest like SNL music videos that they've done. I know we just had Big Boys, that was great too, but I think I Just Had Sex has to be in like a musical lineup. And I know that for myself, if you think about it, if you just got some good lovin', it's a wonderful anthem to go. It's fantastic. It's a good time. And I love the little random cameos in the video as well. Andy Samberg and Yorma gave us so much. And Akon, honestly, to be honest, it is the only thing that I have ever noticed Akon do. I know he was before my time a little bit. That's the only thing I know Akon for. Yeah, I said it. What's up? I want all the smoke from the listeners, Sammy.
He's not before your time. Because if
That's
he
very
was
weird.
my time, he's not before your time.
This is not before your time.
Wait, when did you get here, TJ?
Aren't you? I think you're
Anyway.
older than me, TJ. What is going on?
I don't get it.
All I'm saying for myself at the time, like I had heard of Akon, but I didn't know like any of his hits, or maybe I do, and I just don't like. I'm not connecting the two. Maybe it's like that, maybe I know his stuff, but I don't know what it is. It doesn't matter. I think it's his best work. Like I know it's a song I will listen to. And anyways, it's a wonderful, funny song, and I enjoy it. And so I'm going with I Just Had Sex as one of my pre-tapes, and I will pick it as my first pre-tape because I think it aired pretty early in the show when it aired. But I know it was definitely like an energy booster. I know for myself when I saw, because I think I saw it live. It was one of the first pre-tapes I ever saw live, actually.
And I'll just say, I mean, I Just Had Sex comes out in December of 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I just taken a look at my iTunes. I have, and yes, I DJ, so I still have downloaded music. I have 73 Akon songs that came out before I Just Had Sex. So DJ definitely has listened to or heard Akon.
Yeah, maybe I have. Maybe I've heard one, but like, don't send me Akon music. Like,
it's happening. Yeah.
Oh God.
But yeah, this is a great choice here, and I would say
Smack That. Oh, I know Smack That. That's a great song. Okay, all right, yeah, I do know it. Okay, all right.
All right.
Sorry.
Well, this is probably one of my most played songs of all time. I would say that because it's just it's an anthem, and for me, one of the most like I said, it broke through the barrier of SNL watchers. People just knew I Just Had Sex, and it was one of those moments. It's like, can they get another hit? And they got another hit, and it was just a brilliant, brilliant choice. Nicole, what are your thoughts on TJ choosing I Just Had Sex here?
Well, I feel like this whole conversation we've had is even more interesting than the sketch. Akon Yeah, go stream Akon. Give him some streams, everyone listening.
This is an ad
Yeah,
for
I mean,
Akon.
it's a classic. It's a classic, Lonely Island. I think doesn't surprise anyone listening that we've already had Lonely Island a couple times here. We're going to have them more times. Although it's interesting with the characters that they play. I mean, we know that there's that trifecta that's knocked out, but I feel like it's a lot of Andy playing versions of himself. So I feel like that could be perhaps a layered conversation of what is a recurring character in the Lonely Island pre-tapes. But yeah, I mean, such a classic, and with the Lonely Island, we can't really talk about them without talking about their influence on bringing SNL, ushering SNL into the digital age, and YouTube. It was Lonely Island was one of the first big names that was racking up views on YouTube, which in turn really made SNL able to like adapt. Like, imagine SNL having an influence today if the sketches were not also on YouTube and now on TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. Like, SNL would not have any impact, like have like a wider cultural influence if it couldn't have individual sketches independent of the full show posted everywhere, and the Lonely Island was the inception of that. And this was one of those like all absolute biggest ones to like cross that barrier. I just had sex. So it's like just in like the culture of SNL, and I'd say the sketch, the pre-tape, the song is amazing, the music video, however you want to call it, is amazing, but also like what it did for SNL that is enabling SNL to continue to be what it is today, I think is very key to bring up too.
Okay, let's head over to Rebecca for her fourth pick. She has Hallelujah, Sweaty Balls, and Farewell, Mr. Bunting on her list.
So if Sammy had picked this would have been a personal attack at this point, because I'm going to pick my weekend update anchor, and I'm going to say anchor, and it's going to be a duo, but there's one specific anchor, and then I'll get into the pairing. Tina Fey as anchor. I think her being an anchor in general, all up, I think, open our minds and eyes to how amazing she is. And so if we didn't already know this, I thought this kind of like cemented her in comedy history as just being pretty epic. And yes, I think her with Jimmy Fallon was an electric duo, but I think I wouldn't be doing Amy Poehler Prod if I didn't choose them as the pairing for this episode. The first and only ever 2 female weekend update anchors, and hopefully this will change in the future. But I think the 2 of them, I mean, their chemistry is undeniable. There's a reason that they went from that to hosting the Golden Globes a million times to hosting SNL together. I mean, they are a duo, and you don't think of one without the other. And I think that's what makes for really good weekend update anchors. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that no one has picked them up. And I mean, that's like my comedy icon ends up being a mix of both of them. So.
Okay, well, this is a very good pick here. So just to confirm, you are going with Tina and Amy and not Tina and Jimmy.
Yes, Tina and Amy.
Okay, perfect. So season 30 and 31. And yeah, obviously a very impactful, legacy-driven update era here that we have with Tina and Amy Poehler. So very fascinating choices. Bill, what are your thoughts on Rebecca going with Tina and Amy here?
Talked about this once or twice before, but the kind of the revisionist history of kind of talking down Tina's era is disturbing, because she was so important to the show and she broke so many glass ceilings on a very, very male dominated show for 25 years. So her being a head writer, her being really the first female anchor. I mean, we had a few in the early 80s, but since Jane Curtin, of any significance was huge. And yeah, I would have went with Tina and Amy too, because I think Fallon was terrible on Update. So even though they did have good chemistry. So yeah, this is a great pick.
Sorry, Jamie. Don't listen. Let's head over to Haynes for his fourth pick. He has Strategery as his cold open, Celebrity Jeopardy as a live sketch, and Way Like Me as a pre-tape. Haynes, where are you going?
I think I'm going to go with another pre-tape here. I'm going to save some of these live sketches for later, since that's, a category that they've obviously produced plenty of those. And not that they haven't produced plenty of pre-tapes, but there is one that I just want to go ahead and get off the board. It's extremely well known. It was one of the first SNL pre-tapes that I remember seeing. It caught my eye. It was so hilarious. Listen, sometimes a couple of bros just want to have some beers with the bros. So Schmidt's Gay. That's gonna be my pick for the pre-tape. It's just so fun and joyous. The first time you see Farley flip those shades up, it's just we've all seen it. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just it's fun. I love Schmidt's Gay.
Yeah, this is a very solid pick here from Haynes, selecting the classic Chris Farley and Adam Sandler Schmidt's Gay pre-tape. Haskell, I'm curious from you, was this one you were considering?
Yeah, definitely on my list. Like Haynes said it all. Just a fun sketch, and like you said, that the image of Farley with the shades, like that's still a gift that you can find today and get a lot of use out of. So, really good selection this far into the draft.
All right, Nicole, time to wrap up the fourth round of the draft. You have Black Jeopardy, Dancing in the Dark, and The Actress as the sketches that you have selected.
Yes. All right. So I am now gonna choose my Weekend Update pair, and I think I'm now the fourth person to choose a Weekend Update, fifth person to choose Weekend Update. But I think this would be, if I could choose anything, I think this would be my second choice. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. I probably would only put Norm above this duo, so I'm feeling good. John, you can take Norm, and I don't feel bad about that. This duo I love. I'm going Seth and Amy. I really love this duo. I love Tina Fey and Amy together. I love Seth by himself, but I really, really love Seth and Amy together. I think I've been talking with whether it's a sketch or a duo or whatever. I feel like I've been infusing themes of like history and what came before and after, and to me that is an important part of crafting an episode like this. So for me, just to know what has come after, like Amy was Seth's first guest on his show that we all have been talking about, that we all love, this amazing show. They've done really segments together on a lot of different places since then. Like it's something that's continued. It was a really interesting time, I think, in like pop culture and politics, and I think that they handled it in a really fun way. And I just always love every time I see them together today in the present day. They're always so much fun, and they have something interesting to say. I loved like just everything they did. It was fun, and that's my duo. And it would be, I think if I could choose again, I would only put Norm above them. I think I really, really love them together.
Yeah, it's a great call. I mean, obviously, we have different iterations now of Tina and Amy, Seth and Amy, then Seth off the board. So Nicole goes with Seth and Amy to round out her team. I'm going to head over to Sammy for your thoughts on Nicole picking Seth and Amy.
Yeah, I was gonna pick them next. So I'm not doing so hot. I mean, this just is a big testament to I guess both of them as Weekend Update anchors, that so many different kind of pairings and eras of their time on Update have been taken off the board so far. It's a era of Update that only lasted for 2 years, and the fact that so many times throughout Seth's long tenure on Update, they brought Amy back, whether she was hosting or it was a finale or whatever, to just straight up do Update together. It's just a testament to the relationship they had and the chemistry they had as a comedic duo. So yeah, jealous of this one for sure.
Okay, let's update the listener. So we have 5 cold opens off the board. Haynes has Strategery, Rebecca has Hallelujah, I have Not Gonna Phone It In Tonight, Sammy has Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton, Bill has the 9/11 tribute. 4 monologues are off the board. TJ chose Don Rickles, I chose Jimmy Fallon, Sammy chose Adam Sandler, and Bill chose Tom Hanks. Live sketches that we have chosen, Nicole chose Black Jeopardy and Dancing in the Dark. Haynes has Celebrity Jeopardy. Rebecca has Sweaty Balls. TJ has Meet Your Second Wife. I have The Dancing Coach. Sammy has Haters Puppet Class. Bill has More Cowbell. And Haskell has Matt Foley and Goodnight Saigon. Pre-tapes off the board include Haynes's White Like Me, Rebecca's Anne Schmidt's Gay, Rebecca has Farewell, Mr. Bunting, TJ has I Just Had Sex, Haskell has Dick in a Box, and Nicole has The Actress. Those are the pre-tapes off the board right now. Update anchors, Nicole has Seth and Amy, Rebecca has Tina and Amy, TJ has Cecily and Colin, I have Norm MacDonald, and Haskell has Seth Meyers. So heading into round number 5, Nicole, kick things off.
Okay, I'm very surprised that it's me making this choice. I thought this would have gone sooner into someone else. But I am picking for my third and final live sketch. Wow. I'm picking Lunch Ladyland with Adam Sandler and Chris Farley. This one for me is just, I think, just shows like the pure joy of the two of them more than anything else. And I love it so much. It's one from that era that I go back to a lot, and I just always smile. Really, I would have wanted also, in talking about that era, I wanted to do the Hanukkah song, but that was kind of against the rules because it was on Update, so I didn't have that one. But I actually am even happier to have this one because, again, I mean, Adam Sandler and Chris Farley are already on the board together, but for me, this is like the ultimate performance of the two of them and the ultimate just commemoration of that duo and of that time period. So I love this one. It's another one that when you're giving someone the cliff notes of SNL and its history, which I'm trying to kind of convey in my episode, I feel like I'm like hitting all the marks, the different times, the different tones. And this one I think is a perfect kind of midway through point in that story that I want to tell through this episode.
All right, so Nicole picks Lunch Ladyland. This is a sketch from 1994, season 19, episode 11, and really at the point where you have Chris Farley and Adam Sandler fully formed and starting to take over, and they're really going to do that as we eventually lose Phil Hartman on the show at the end of the season, and then they have that infamous season 20 where they're sort of leading this pack of very random assortment of cast members. But yeah, this is a classic from season 19 that if you haven't seen, you have to go back and check out. Bill, would love to get your thoughts on Lunch Ladyland going to Nicole here.
I have very little to say, except I was going to have, in the first time on the podcast, I was going to have a wardrobe change when I picked Lunch Ladyland. Can't do it now.
Oh no!
No,
this is the first time I almost feel bad for someone
No.
who I stole from.
I'm costume change.
I'm so happy that you picked something from that time period. This was peak Sandler Farley, and yes, it is absolutely one of those things that you show people when you want to show them how funny this show has been for so long. And you get Sarah Silverman, who was on the show for 5 minutes. You get Fred Wolf, who nobody remembers, and Norm and Nealon wandering around as well. So it's great sketch.
Yeah, very reminiscent of like Mulaney musical sketches from back in the day, I would say. But yeah, I mean, and I still have props with me too in case I choose marzipan. I know I can eat that later on in the draft.
What?
So we'll see if that comes off the board. But let's head over to Haynes for his next pick. Just to remind you, he has chosen his cold open. He has a live sketch. He chose a pre-tape, 2 pre-tapes as well.
I think I'm going to stick with my original pre-draft strategy, which was I'm saving the weekend update stuff for the very end because we're picking the ultimate episode. I feel like any of these weekend update hosts can have one great, episode of jokes, one great set, if you will. So I'm going to go Monologue. And this was tough for me. I've said before on this podcast, I've mentioned some of my favorite monologues of all time. I absolutely adore Catherine O'Hara's Halloween monologue, which basically is just the opportunity to make fun of her little sister. The whole set, it's this amazing, brilliant joke. And then at the end, she just tells her little sister that her face looks like a butt. And it's also the stupidest way you can make fun of a sibling. And that is so like heartwarming to me as somebody with brothers and sisters. Absolutely love it, but I didn't want to pigeonhole myself, with a Halloween monologue and then feel like it'd be weird if I got a Christmas sketch in there for live later down the line. So I'm pulling back from that. And I want to say again how much I value your opinion, Rebecca. So don't take this as a personal shot. But after the cold open that made me think I might never watch SNL again, one of the greatest monologues of all time saved the episode. And that was Dave Chappelle in 2016, dealing with that whole situation. That's how you handle it. You bring in somebody who can talk about serious stuff and in the most incredibly hilarious way. It became the longest monologue of all time. I don't remember if one of his other ones has surpassed that, John.
Yes, his next one did.
Gotcha, right. But obviously, monumental, no matter what angle that you view it from. So to me, it's my monologue is going to be 2016 Dave Chappelle.
Very interesting. TJ, what do you think of that?
That was actually going to be my second pick for after Rickles, which surprised even myself because Dave is my favorite comedian. But I think it's an excellent. I think that entire episode is just a wonderful capsule, and I always forget that it is sandwiched with that really sad Hallelujah. I don't know why y'all picking some sad moments for the show. Dude, this is supposed to be your dream episode, and you and Bill Kenney want to open with sad moments. Like, I don't understand. Like, who wants to open after a tragedy? But I digress. Yeah, I think it's incredibly strong. I remember sitting watching that. I was so excited. I'm pretty sure I made some wings or something. I was just so happy and I was on every word, just watching and enjoying. I think it's an incredible piece. Can't speak more highly about it.
All right, Rebecca, we're going to head over to you. You have your cold open selected, as well as a live sketch, a pre-tape, and your update team.
This is hard. There are so many things I want and want to make sure people don't take. I'm going to reserve my live sketches, and I'm going to say a monologue. This monologue, the host of this episode is just all around an amazing comedian, and I think this monologue captured it all into 4 to 5 minutes, and every second was a joke, punchline, and it's Robin Williams' safe sex monologue.
Yeah, that's a great choice. That's one of those where I think everybody who was doing research on the greatest monologues of all time, this comes up across the board. And people who know me know I love Robin Williams. I love getting to see him on the show, and he was a fantastic host. And they should really replay those episodes more because he was just so great when he did it. But really great call here, Rebecca. Haskell, what do you think of Rebecca's choice here?
Yeah, really class. It's sort of what you want out of monologue. Robin Williams in general is what you want out of a monologue, right? When you're kicking off the night and you're getting some energy, and that's sort of how you kick off a great show is with that sort of energy in a monologue. And so I definitely had it on my list. So my monologues are starting to squeeze out a little bit, I think. So it was a good choice to make that selection right now.
Yeah, and the high energy after Hallelujah is intentional. So just when you're looking at the episode all up, a really high energy monologue. So I was deciding between that and another one that was more low key, and I thought that would be a good pairing. So thanks for calling that out.
Yeah, so we only have 2 monologue slots left, Nicole and Haskell, just for anybody keeping track at home.
TJ. Oh, no, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong spot.
Nope, definitely not.
Yep,
TJ,
I'm wrong. I'm wrong. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, TJ, we're going to head over to you because you do have your monologue selected and a live sketch and your update team and a pre-tape.
Just one question here, and this might give it away a little bit. So Haskell selected Dick in a Box. I selected a Lonely Island sketch. That's 2 Lonely Islands. Are they now off the board completely, or is it?
No, Lonely Island is not a recurring sketch. They have recurring characters, but the entire brand is not a recurring sketch.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So that's intriguing. I am going to go with a live sketch. I want Herb Welsh. If I can't have Stefan, I'm gonna get what I think is Bill Hader's next best character. I don't know if it's next best, but one of my favorite is reoccurring. I think one of his strongest reoccurring characters is Herb Welch, and it's going to be specifically the Falling Ice sketch, which I want to say we have Emma Stone in this episode as a teenager, but the part I enjoy a little bit more later on is Kristen Wiig comes in as kind of an androgynous landlord, I think. And at some point, Herb Welch is just like batting Kristen Wiig with a microphone in the most inappropriate of ways. But Kristen and Bill are trying to keep themselves together, and it makes me laugh a lot. I think Jason, the way that Jason yells at Herb all the time, and the way that Herb just kind of like meekly like bites back. I think Herb Welch is an incredible character. It's just another showcase for how incredible Bill Hader is. So that's I'm going to go with Herb Welch, Falling Ice.
Yeah, and the sketch you are referring to is season 37, episode 6, where Emma Stone does host the show. So that is your Herb Welch that you are taking in an excellent Bill Hader character over here. So, Nicole, what are your thoughts on TJ's pick here with Herb Welch?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'm making it my last live sketch of the night. I'm not making it my middle.
Okay, no problem.
Got it. Yeah, I don't think we've talked about Bill Hader enough, actually, until right now. So I think this is a really good Bill character to bring up. And you've got some other Bill on yours, TJ. So I think most of the Bill discourse we've been talking about with you. So
I don't have any other Bill. That's Sammy got puppet class.
Are you were talking? I guess you were responding.
Anthony Peter Coleman.
You were talking about it. I was saying the discourse. You were, most of the discourse was you responding to Sammy. That's what I meant. But yeah, I mean it's a great one. It's a perfect Bill character. It's a perfect choice, that specific one. And yeah, it's another like fun thing when you're crafting an episode to have a character who you can say this is a character from a cast member who is amazing and has all these different characters, and here's one to get into. Here's one of many, and this is a really good one to get into and get excited about as you're watching one episode. Because I think like in this very current era, we've all talked about how we don't have enough of those recurring characters. We have more recurring concepts or recurring, abstract, broader things that we do. But I think to include that era, that one of the golden eras, of that one being one of them, like to have a recurring character from that, I feel like is a very good choice for an episode.
Okay, I am up next with my next pick, my fifth pick, and I took a very calculated risk here that I was just really hoping that nobody above me would select this, and I'm going to pick the pre-tape that had the single most influence on me than anything else that I've seen on Saturday Night Live. And that to me is Lazy Sunday. And, I just have to say, I mean, when I saw that, it changed my life. Like I was just, I could do that. Like, I didn't know I could do that. Like, they're not doing anything that crazy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Parnell's an incredible rapper. He could have been a rapper. Sandberg is like, a very good artist. But like, I'm like, whoa, you could just like film yourself like walking around and like rapping about random stuff. And like, I wasn't the only one. Like, this has affected a generation and really kicked off people making their own videos, leads to YouTube, leads to TikTok. Like, you follow the through line there. And for me, this like had to come across the board as your like ultimate SNL experience. So I'm going to pick Lazy Sunday over here. Sammy, would love to know your thoughts on Lazy Sunday getting selected by me.
The pre-tape category, I knew that for myself, like there's a slot that is dedicated to a Lonely Island digital short, and that's not digital short. Like that's out of the question. And there's so many to choose from. But all I'll say on this is a great pick. Maybe one I would have picked when you come around to me in this next round. But honestly, I was torn between two digital shorts, and you just helped me kind of just make the decision a lot easier. So I'm going to go smooth sailing into this next pick. Thanks to you, John. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Well, let's find out in just a second. He has his cold open selected, his monologue. He has a live sketch, and his 2 live sketches selected as well. So no pre-tapes off the board for Sammy yet. Sammy, where are you going to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an obvious choice, but it doesn't really matter to me because when we did the Superfans, we did our favorite digital shorts, episode. I went above and beyond, and I went back and I watched every single SNL digital short, and I kept a ranking of every single SNL digital short. And my top 3 was interchanging throughout the entire process. But what I landed on is the sketch I'm about to pick, which is "I'm on a Boat." When that digital short, hit my television screen, it is something that me and my friends will, like, if we're at like a pregame or something, like, and we're about to go out for the night, like that's a song you play. Everyone's singing along, everyone's like super pumped, and you're kind of taken back to that time. And I think that one in particular is really special to me because I think that's like the first time you really see Akiva kind of step out from behind the camera and be a part of at least the musical SNL digital shorts, which I think is a lot of fun. I love Akiva, Schaefer, and just the interplay of them going with T-Pain on a boat and leaving Yorma Tacone, at home. Is just very funny. So I'm really happy I ended up with "I'm on a Boat," which I would make my first pre-tape of the night. Just a really, and if you look at my list right now, it's just a very solid chunk. I think you can't argue.
I think everybody feels that way, but
yeah. Well, I have a solid chunk.
See. Okay, well, okay. You make that,
sir.
Yeah, control yourself, Sammy. We're going to we'll make our arguments at the end of the show for our list. But yes, "I'm on a Boat," another one of those very influential ones for me, at least. I remember making parodies to this as well in high school. So just, for sure, a very classic Lonely Island pre-tape. Rebecca, I'd love to know your thoughts on Sammy taking "I'm on a Boat" here.
Yeah, I was in just starting middle school when this premiered on TV, and I would sing it with all my friends. I remember I went to sleepaway camp for the summer, and someone had this downloaded on their iPod, and this was our song of the summer. And it's one of those that transcends SNL, and it's kind of a vibe. When you said oh, you played it at pregame, the fact that it started on a sketch comedy show and now it's kind of ingrained in pop culture history, that kind of just speaks for itself as why it's a great digital short and a great choice from you, Sammy.
Really quickly, I want to add for this. I'm pretty sure this might be the only Lonely Island song that was nominated for a Grammy. So just saying that might be a stat. I know that it was definitely nominated, but I'm not sure if it was the only one. So
yeah, for sure. And of course, as TJ knows, T-Pain only came out exactly at this digital short time. There was no T-Pain before that.
I knew who T-Pain was when I heard "I'm on a Boat." Oh, you guys are so full of it.
I've got the stats.
Yeah.
They were they have 2 nominations. One is for Best Comedy Album, Turtleneck and Chain.
Of course.
And then "I'm on a Boat" for Best Rap/Sung Collaboration. So it is the only song to be nominated for a Grammy, and then they also were nominated for Best Album.
There you go. And the Grammys are never wrong. Grammys have never been wrong about anything.
Famously.
Yeah.
Oh, we started on the Grammys.
Milli Vanilli has entered the chat.
Yes. Okay, over to Bill Kenney, who has chosen his cold open, a monologue, and 2 live sketches.
So some of the funnest times I had was talking about Lonely Island, and I love to see all the Lonely Island love tonight. But to paraphrase my friend Andrew Haynes, SNL has a cast. SNL had pre-tapes before 2005. This is crazy, I know. So I'm going to go with one of my favorites. This is somebody I need to make sure is on this show. I'm going with a season 17 classic, Colombian Crystals with Chris Farley. And, in the 80s and the 90s, these commercials were prevalent everywhere with, these secret cameras, switching out your Coke with your Pepsi, switching out your Folgers with the Sanka. And this was based on that. And Chris Farley's sitting at a nice restaurant, suit and tie. And they cut to him with the woman that he's sitting with, and they say, we wanted to let you know that we switched out your regular coffee with Colombian Crystals. And the look on his face as he's, "What? You son of a bitch." And he jumps across the table and he beats the hell out of the waiter, and they have to hold him back until they finally kick him out. Or actually they hit him with a frying pan to knock him out. And then they cut to him in bandages and they talk about, what did you think of the new Colombian crystals? Such a great Farley moment. I don't think it's talked about nearly enough. Gets kind of lost in the mix. It's quick out. It's less than 2 minutes. So go watch it on YouTube if you haven't seen it in a while. Colombian Crystal season 17.
Yeah, it's a great sketch here. It's a Tom Schiller sketch as well, and this is just a classic Chris Farley moment. Haynes, how do you feel about Bill taking this choice here?
Great pick. Opens with Farley in that Kelly green jacket, like he just won the Masters, and then just classic Farley energy, just big extreme energy. Physical comedy, and he's the kind of guy you have to hit with a frying pan to slow down. Just super fun and explosive. Great pick.
Okay, Haskell has back-to-back picks here to end the 5th round and kick off the 6th round. Just as a reminder, he has chosen Matt Foley and Goodnight Sagon as his live sketches. He also has a pre-tape Dick in a Box, and he's his update anchor, Seth Meyers. Haskell, where do you go to end this round?
Well, I was going to go to Monologue till I realized I have 2 monologues that I like and only me and one other person to be choosing them. So I'm going to hold off, right? I am a huge Star Wars fan. So I'm going to go with the best Star Wars sketch that SNL has ever done. It's so good that it actually did permeate to Star Wars fandom. I'm going with Matt, the radar technician, undercover boss on Starkiller Base. It's awesome. Got to get some love for Taron Killam and Bobby Moynihan. Got to get Bobby on this, right? Bobby, let's be friends. I know you're listening. And then it just really set the tone for Adam Driver to be one of the best hosts of that era. For me, to bring Star Wars together in SNL and for it to be absolutely hilarious. Love that sketch. Had to make sure I got it on my episode.
Absolutely. And Bobby told us last week, this is where Bobby felt like he was in his prime pitching this to Adam Driver. And he just felt okay, I'm just hitting a home run with this one. And they absolutely did. Sammy, how do you feel about Haskell's pick here, going with the Star Wars sketch, Undercover Boss?
Yeah, as far as non SNL digital shorts pre-tapes that were on my list, this was certainly up there. Adam Driver is someone that I really need to come host SNL this season. He is just the fact that he kind of did this right as the new Star Wars movies were coming out. He was not he was a star, but he wasn't a huge star. And the fact that he was able to kind of come in and really play around with this character who was supposed to be the overarching villain of this new franchise and kind of poke fun at it is really, really awesome. And yeah, it's one of those moments where SNL permeated the culture in a big way. I think it's probably one of the highest viewed SNL sketches on YouTube for sure. So, I mean, this is a good pick, Haskell.
All right, Haskell, you have another pick coming up to kick off our next round. Where are you going to go?
All right. So in this last year and a half, we have seen the awesome emergence of Sarah Sherman and really bringing some horniness and some sexual innuendo to SNL. But I'm going to go back to a hornier sketch, a more sexual innuendo sketch. I'm going to go with Colonel Angus. He might be rough. He might not smell like a bed of roses, but deep down, he's sweet. Just a great double entendre sketch. Getting Christopher Walken, an all-time host, in there. And that's still again, the theme of the night. You want to go back and show people sketches. It's one of the ones you pull up on YouTube and you're wait, don't read it. Don't read the name of the sketch or anything. Just let it happen to you. One of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, this one is so good. This is from 2003. This is season 28, episode 13. And like Haskell said, Christopher Walken hosting. I always think of Rachel Jerash in this particular sketch and the way that she says Colonel Angus. It's so great here. Bill, what do you think about this pick as a live sketch for Haskell?
Definitely one of the best sketches of the last 20 years. And if it's 2003, we're right at that now. Kind of surprised even at the time that they were able to get away with as much as they did with the wordplay. but yeah, I mean, this is definitely one of those things you have to introduce people to, and great pick.
Yeah, exactly. And Bill, we're going to head over to you. So, just to let the listeners know what you have left available to be chosen, you have one live sketch, one pre tape, your update anchor, and your musical guest.
I'm struggling with the live sketches, but again, going back to trying to get as many people that I love on this one episode of SNL. So I'm going to go back to my first season, season 12, and my first favorite character, which was the church lady. And we're going with season 12. This is one of the later ones they did that season, and it's kind of when it really took off. We've got Dana as the church lady and Phil and Jan as Tammy Faye and Jim Baker. And we if you don't remember, this was kind of the beginning of all these, mega churches being embroiled in scandal. Jim Baker was, this highly religious guy who had cheated on his wife in a $10 hotel. And Tammy Faye was just over the top with the mascara and the crying. And Jan just killed it in this sketch. Yeah, I mean, she talked about hallucinating cats on the ceiling because she was on drugs because she was so upset that Jim had stepped out of their marriage. And then they end with the mascara just running down her face as Dana is, killing her and saying, Satan has inspired this to happen. So I'm going with Church Chat, season 12.
Yeah, season 12, episode 15. This is a sketch from 1987 that obviously features a lot of greats in Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, and Jan Hooks. And very interesting, right? This is another, kind of sketch that could be a cold open, could be a regular sketch, but you chose it as a sketch because this is not one of the ones that appeared as a cold open. But yeah, obviously an all-time great sketch. We recently saw Church Lady, I think it was probably going back 6 years ago on Weekend Update. And this is just a great choice for you, Bill. Haynes, any thoughts on Bill selecting Church Lady here?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most iconic recurring sketches of all time, and Jan Hooks plays an amazing Tammy Faye here. She's just really exceptional. So it kind of surprises me that Church Lady is coming up this late in the game, but it's obviously a great pick for so many reasons.
Let's head over to Sammy for his next pick. So his sixth pick, where he has his musical guest, his update anchor, a live sketch, and a pre-tape left.
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked a lot tonight. There's been a couple of running themes, kind of narratives throughout our draft here tonight, and one is about the idea of SNL being like a comedy show versus like picking sketches that capture a moment and are maybe sad, that react to a sad moment in history. And I think there's sketches that do that and are kind of sad and reflect on that time. And then there's sketches that I think are kind of bittersweet. And I think there's a difference there, and that's what I'm going to highlight in this next pick. This was just kind of emulated in a sense with the Cecily Strong farewell, but I'm going to pick Kristen Wiig's farewell sketch. She's like a rainbow. Goodbye Ruby Tuesday from the Mick Jagger episode. Also Andy Samberg's last episode of the show. Whenever I want a good cry, I'll go back, and it's just like, I don't know. This was the era of the show that I grew up watching, and this was kind of the beginning of that era coming to an end. And even though it is like a bittersweet sketch, I still like laugh a lot like while I watch it. Like every kind of little dance that that current cast gets to do with Kristen Wiig kind of like emulates the relationship and like the vibe that they kind of had with each other. And I think Kristen Wiig's one of the all-time great cast members, just straight up. So I think she deserved to kind of get this moment to shine. And this is something I would put at the end of my episode. Kind of end the season, end the episode on a bit of a bittersweet note, but certainly a nice capstone to my episode. So I'm going with that for my pick.
Nicole, what do you think about Sammy's pick here?
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, another theme that we saw recently with Cecily that we haven't talked so much about yet is the goodbye sketch. And people have had more memorable ones than others, and of course, Kristen's was one of the more memorable ones. I agree. I cry when I watch it. It's another one due to like music rights and things that isn't always so easy to find. So I kind of like dig it up when I want to watch it, and but that kind of makes it more special, where you can't just like find it easily. It doesn't show up on recommended on YouTube, so you don't find your way back to it. Like you have to actively go find it. You're not just auto recommended it, on your like search engines because it's hard to find. So it really is like just such an emotional one. Like there's one moment like where Andy, who it's also his last episode, where like he comes up and hugs Kristen, and that's like the moment for me. That's what gets me, where he like spins her around. So it's just, yeah, that one is so special, and it's not really funny. There are a couple jokes like in the beginning, but it's something where like I don't think that the perfect episode means that every moment is funny. I think like comedy is so intertwined with emotion and heart and soul and stuff. Like the best comedians are people who are able to tap into empathy and tap into just the human experience. And so celebrating those people for who they are as like emotional beings and vessels for humor, I think is a really important part of the show and its history. So I think moments like this have such a place in the perfect episode.
Okay. Let's head over to me for my next choice, and I'll remind you that I've chosen my cold open, my monologue. I have a live sketch, a pre-tape, and an update. So left to me is 2 live sketches, 1 pre-tape, and my musical guest. And I think I'm going to use one of my live sketches here. And I find that my episode so far is a little bit too modern. I know I have Not Gonna Phone It In tonight, but it's really like, I want to be able to show off my episode and show off multiple eras of the show. And it makes sense for me to show something from the original era of the show. Probably the characters that resonated the most with me when I was first watching were the Coneheads. So I am going to pick the Coneheads here. Specifically, I'll probably go with, I think my personal favorite is the Coneheads Family Feud from the Steve Martin episode, which is a very fun one with Bill Murray and Steve Martin. And it's just a really good time showing off the Coneheads. And for those who don't know, obviously there was a movie made, but they come from France, but they're really they're really aliens that are here, and they just have these weird tendencies and trying to integrate. And sort of reminds me of one of my favorite sitcoms, which is a Jane Curtin show, Third Rock from the Sun, which was very fun. It came on down the road. But for me, I wanted to include something from the original era, and I think that this will be a fun one to include in my greatest episode. I didn't want to let Haynes steal it by any chance. I wasn't sure if he was going to go in that direction. But Bill, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel about me picking Coneheads here?
Definitely something I was thinking about when I was trying to get the entire swath of the show. Coneheads is definitely something that works even today. The Family Feud one especially is very, very funny. And they were still in a point where, they went through all of this makeup to put these cones on, but Bill Murray's playing Richard Dawson as himself, which, they were kind of apt to do back then. They didn't put any makeup on these guys sometimes. But Jane, Lorraine, and Danny were so great in this. But we don't speak of the movie, John. I don't know if you knew that, but we don't.
Yeah.
We don't speak of the movie at all. But yeah, this is definitely one of those that was on my final list as well.
All right, let's head over to TJ, who has his cold open, a live sketch, a pre-tape, and his musical guest available to be chosen.
So I'm gonna go with a pre-tape, and if I'm okay to do this, if I'm not okay to do this, let me know. I have a backup planned. But I want to go with another Lonely Island pre-tape, specifically a musical one that I think was also just another hit maker in that kind of like musical hit after hit after hit. Where the Lonely Island was just cranking out stuff that was super catchy, because I heard this when I was in high school. And I still have quoted it to this day. The amount of times I've said that my dad's not a phone to my friends, and we've gotten that reference, cracks me up. So I'm going with Threw It on the Ground, from the Lonely Island as my my other pre-tape pick. I know that's two Lonely Island back-to-backs, but since I couldn't get White Like Me, that's like the only non-modern sketch, non-modern pre-tape that I had.
Sammy, what do you think about Threw It on the Ground going to TJ here?
I mean, yeah, we keep talking about the Lonely Island tonight because they, you know, they were the kings of the pre-tapes for a long time, or for for their era of the show. Yeah, but this is one that I feel like definitely, you know, I, it's not like underrated, but I feel like kind of as a sneaky one that permeated the culture in a way that non SNL fans got into it. Like, I feel like people of my age, will sometimes say like, just like, I took it and threw it on the ground, like
Yeah.
about random stuff, and it's like become like a part of the lexicon in a way. And for one that I think is not, I don't know if it has like as a music video is like one of those top digital shorts that people remember, but somehow I think permeated and is absolutely a great pre-tape. So good pick.
Okay, over to Rebecca, who has available two live sketches, a pre-tape, and her musical guest.
So I'm going to do a live sketch for this one. I'm going to put it in like my middle spot. And I haven't had any Kristen Wiig on my episode. And as my all-time favorite cast member, I'm not doing her justice. I thought this one might be safe for a while, and it has been up until now. But I don't want to risk it any further than this. And my all-time favorite Kristen Wiig, and I mean, there are so many to choose from here, but it's a recurring character, and it's my all-time favorite SNL character, and it's Target Lady. Specifically, Target Lady meets her first lesbian. And there are just so, first of all, it's so real. I can't walk into a Target without thinking like, welcome to Target. I can't just like, the excitement is just like quintessential Kristen Wiig, but for some reason, this character just like sends me, and her interaction with people, like, I mean, the amount of times I quote like, "Oh, I'm going to need half an almond to finish this," and then she bites it, and she's like, "Much better," and I'm like, "That's how I feel right now going into round 6 of this draft right now. Like, I need half an almond," and I just think, I mean, they're all good. All three of them are solid, but I think just like her meeting her first lesbian and just being like, just so good, being like stereotype busted. It's my favorite of all time.
I got some almond candy dough here with marzipan, but if you need some of that. But
Marzipan, come on.
It all comes back to marzipan.
Nicole, what do you think of the Target Lady choice here?
Amazing. Love it, and love that one specifically too. It's just so Kristen Wiig, and it's such a memorable character, not just because of like the way that she talks or her worldview, which are so in depth. Like you can tell by these couple minutes of sketches, like you build, it's just like such a world building experience of this person. But then it's also like such a recognizable location. So it's had such an impact because of what Rebecca said. You walk into a Target, and if you're an SNL fan, you start quoting Target Lady or talking like her. And they just leave such an imprint. Like when you can start, you just start thinking about a character in your everyday life. So I love it. It's so Kristen. It's so just one of her most memorable characters. And for all the characters that Kristen did that maybe were run into the ground or whatever, I think this one is just, when it's all said and done, her tenure is over, even though we still see her, she comes back and hosts and cameos. I think like when her tenure there is, now that she's not a cast member, I think that's one of the ones that is the most fun to look back on. So I love it. It's a great choice.
Okay, so let's head over to Haynes for his 6th pick. He has 2 live sketches left, update and music.
Yeah, so better get some more live sketches in here. There are so many great live sketches to choose from. And I know I'm getting almost back-to-back picks here. I think I'm going to go with the much more recent one, just because it's a little fresher in the mind. And, I don't know if Nicole would steal this one anyway, but I got to get this one on the board. I'm just thinking about sketches that I come back to and love watching over and over again. This is not the first iteration of the sketch, but it is the best. And it comes from John Mulaney's second episode hosting. I am going with the grand musical Bodega Bathroom.
Interesting. Okay. So Bodega Bathroom off the board here to Haynes. Nicole would love to talk about this. So go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm actually done with live sketches, so I couldn't have chosen it. But I think that my lunch lady choice it's sort of kind of an honor to the John Mulaney, as we talked about. So I feel if I didn't have that one, I would be sad to not have a Mulaney musical, because those are so near and dear to my heart. But I would never have chosen that one. Oh my God. For me, it's Diner Lobster, and then it's Airport Sushi, and then we can talk. But like those are way up. And then, okay, then I would choose yours third for sure. But like Diner Lobster, Airport Sushi, way, 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 way above. So, yeah, you don't worry about me, because I wasn't going there. Even if I could, I wouldn't have. I don't have the space for it, but.
Well, it's not your team, so that Haynes chose what he wanted for his list. But,
you said you were thinking, I'm good. Don't worry.
I didn't mean to give you that much credit and think you would know which one was the better one.
She does literally live in New York City.
All right, let's head over to Nicole, though, for her next pick. So Nicole has Cold Open, Monologue, a pre-tape, and her music available. Where are you going to go, Nicole?
So I am going to now choose my Cold Open. And for me, Kate McKinnon as Hillary is one of the all-time just most defining things about SNL and its history to me. I think when, like, in general, that impression is probably my favorite impression of all time, and I think the most accurate, while also, to me, that impression is what the Legally Blonde musical is to the Legally Blonde movie. It adds depth and character and something different while being so true to the source material. And if you get that, you get that. I see Rebecca totally agreeing with me. I see if you know, and I feel sorry for you if that doesn't land, because you're not cultured and you don't get it. So anyway, so I thought about which one I wanted to do a lot, and I'm really happy that my first choice is still in the running. It's still open. It's one of the first ones that she ever did. One of the first times Kate appeared as Hillary, and it was the election video one where she announced her candidacy on her phone, and then it set the tone also for her playing off of Daryl Hammond as Bill Clinton, and that dynamic that they had, which was also, I think, amazing and underrated, that they played up that joke, about how they can't stand each other, but also they, at the end of the day, are kind of perfect for each other. And so I just adore that dynamic. I think it was the perfect one to, it wasn't the first time, but it was one of the first times that we saw her in that role. And it really, like, who would have thought what was to come, that journey, that we would see it not only so many more times, but under so many insane circumstances. We would see Kate as Hillary after that. And it was a really, really fun, again, like world building and tone setting Cold Open, as far as all of the times that we saw and maybe we'll continue to see Kate come back as Hillary. That's my favorite one when you just think about the singular performance aspect. I did think about some of the debate sketches, and if I chose a debate Cold Open, it would have been an early round one, not like, Hillary and Alec Baldwin against each other. But I do love a lot of the Cold Opens where you get to see a lot of candidates having great one-liners and quirky little quips here and there. Those I also absolutely love. The early round, tons of people going in and out, but this one is, for me, just beautiful and perfect.
Okay, well, that is Nicole's pick, the election video Cold Open from season 40, episode 18, with Daryl as Bill and Kate as Hillary. Haskell, any thoughts on this Cold Open?
Yeah, my only issue is I just feel like the political writing was not as strong as this point in the show. in that we ended up with a lot of nondescript Hillary and Trump, and it all just kind of bleeds together for me. There wasn't a ton, like outside of the Hallelujah cold open, there's not a ton in that era that really sticks out. It really just bleeds together. So like, as it represents like Kate as Hillary, like I'm cool with that as representation. If you really want to pull out one cold open to me and be like, this is the one, I kind of disagree, because I'm like, it was all a lot of just like copying manuscript or transcripts over at that era in the show.
Okay, well, Nicole, you have another pick ahead of you because you still have your monologue, a pre-tape, and music available.
Okay, I'm going to choose my monologue. So this is one, it's very, you love it or you hate it. I love it. I love this person. I love how he loves SNL. I love how he made it his own. Actually, the two monologues I was deciding between are both musical monologues, which very controversial, especially with this group here, but also they're musical monologues where you can really feel the influence of the person. You know, they didn't just show up to SNL and say, write whatever you want for me, which I think is also great. When you say, I'll do whatever, I'll say anything. Here are a few facts about me and you can do with that what you will. I love that too. But I love musical theater. I love icons of musical theater. And so Lin-Manuel Miranda's monologue is, to me, just an all-time great. It's a perfect, also that same time period, a really intense encapsulation of that time period. You know, he shouts out that he prefers it when it's Kate McKinnon v. Baldwin in the debates. So, you know, just to give you a little sense of the time that he hosted. And he did his monologue to Hamilton, to My Shot from Hamilton. And the one also I was thinking about was Taylor Swift's monologue, her song, which I think just those two are so just, you can just really feel the person and the presence of them and how they came to the show and said, I love the show. And I'm also going to really showcase who I am through the lens and through the format of the show, and blending the show's format and the person, what that person is famous for, in such a seamless way. So I'm going Lin-Manuel Miranda's monologue.
All right, Nicole, I think that's a very solid choice. I think that it's an interesting choice for sure, because it does come at a time where Lin-Manuel is pretty much assuming that Hillary Clinton's going to become the president. And that's, you know, in retrospect, it's something interesting to watch. It's like, did that play well in the long run? But I do think if you're a Hamilton guy and you like Lin-Manuel Miranda, then that makes sense. So very solid pick there. So you have just a pre-tape and your musical guest left to be chosen. Haynes comes up next. So Haynes, you have update, one live sketch, and your musical guest. Where are you going to go?
All right. I think I'm going to squeeze in my final live sketch now. And man, like I said, last round, I'm at this point, I'm just kind of thinking about ones that I tend to go back to that feel like classics to me. Despite, you know, your terrible judgment in John Mulaney musicals, Nicole, I am glad that you mentioned the Clintons. Phil Hartman as Bill Clinton walking into McDonald's, you know, grabbing those fries off the tray, and as he's talking about military movements and making excuses basically to eat this terrible fast food. This is an all-time classic sketch to me. I revisit it over and over again. Of course, it makes the best of SNL shows, and I just love the sketch. Like I said, it's just one that I go back to over and over again. So I'd love to talk about that one.
Yeah, that is a very classic Phil Hartman sketch that is just brilliant and goes to show you it's something I wish they would do in modern days, Haynes, where they would take the political figure that they're doing an impression of and take them outside of the White House, put them in different situations. So Phil Hartman at McDonald's as Bill Clinton is just a fantastic sketch to put into your rundown. So that fills out your list very nicely. Let's head over to Rebecca for her next choice. Rebecca has music, live sketch, and a pre-tape left to be chosen.
I'm going to break into the musical guest spot for the first time of this draft. When I was thinking, there are so many great musical performances, but what sticks out in your head? And I think someone who is banned from performing on SNL from here on out sticks out in my head. And I was only worried about Nicole taking this, so I'm glad I got it. But Ashley Simpson going on stage, the wrong song playing when she went to go lip sync, she awkwardly dances right off the stage, and then that's it. And she is and not allowed to perform on SNL again. And that is one of the most notorious and iconic musical guest performances ever.
Nicole, you want to jump in quickly here on Ashley Simpson?
Love that so much. Redemption, please. She deserves it. It's perfect timing. Brilliant. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. So the first musical guest off the board, Rebecca selects Ashley Simpson doing her little jig as she, messes up. But yeah, this is fun. This is an all-time SNL moment. It goes to show you this is live television. So I think that's really good. Let's head over to TJ for his next pick. TJ, you still got a cold open, a live sketch, and your musical guest ready to be picked.
I'm gonna go for a musical guest, and I know this is gonna seem even too modern because it is, but I'm gonna go with Lizzo, but not off of her third musical guest one because that's the weakest to me. To be honest, her musical guest performance when she was paired with Eddie Murphy for his episode, I think is such a and I think she also killed it. I think it's just a great showcase that like to have her paired up with such an incredible show, and then for her to come back and host and knock it out of the park and do About Damn Time and Special. I think like her performances are incredible, and she's an amazing vocalist, so she's going to knock it out of the park whenever she does it. So, and the show seems to like her, so she's going to be my musical guest because she will bring the house down every time.
Yeah, it's a really excellent choice. And obviously, we were very happy to see Lizzo this past week on the show. So that was very fun. I feel like we're at the point of the draft right now where like kickers are starting to get selected, like musical guests are going to go really quickly, or like, so, this is an interesting, and I wasn't prepared to necessarily pick one here. And I think I'm going to hold because I think there's a lot of musical guests from the history of the show that are good options. But for me, I have available left to me my musical guest, one live sketch, and one pre-tape. And I think I'm going to go pre-tape here. And I think that there's so many good pre-tapes, but there's one that really stands out for me that I'm surprised wasn't selected so far in this draft. I don't see too many commercial parodies, and I think that's because we ended up going a lot into the digital short range. But for me, I'm going to go with Totino's, the very classic Vanessa Bayers sketch. This was recurring. It was there, 3 times. I think the right one to go with, I'm still debating about like what the right one is. I think the first one is really, really good, but like that third one that she does with Kristen Stewart is probably the right choice. So I'm going to go there with Kristen Stewart's Totino's. I know you, in order to watch it, you have to watch them as a trilogy, but for me, this seems like a good spot to get. I feel like there's a lot of value late in the draft. So for me, that is my last pre-tape that I will be selecting tonight. And then Sammy Kay, you're up next. You still have your musical guest. You have your update anchor and a pre-tape available to you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going with pre-tape, and because these two people recently left the show, I feel like, hasn't really been like a ton of opportunity to talk about them, but I'm going to do it here. Beck and Kyle really took the baton from, The Lonely Island as far as, pre-tapes go. And I think my favorite of theirs has to be the Beers pre-tape with Larry David. They did a bunch of these fake sitcom pre-tapes. And for this one, they have Larry David come in, and he's playing Beck Bennett's like cousin or Kyle's cousin that is obsessed with beer, and everything goes wrong. And I just this is one I quote a lot, so I'm really happy I had a spot for Beers.
Yeah, so this is actually kind of funny because for those who don't know, obviously Larry David used to be a writer on the show, but this is so great, this particular pre-tape, especially with Beck and Kyle, where you see them, and just this is like ideal Beck and Kyle, where they're having the back and forth that you can only get with their chemistry. I always think of that moment, Sammy, where they're like, let's just like talk by ourselves for a second, and then they move like just a touch over, which I think is absolutely hilarious. So I know it's always great. I know our panel is big Larry David fans, so very exciting to get Larry on the board here in some sense. So I think it's a great pick from you, Sammy. And then we are going to head over to Bill Kenney for his next pick, and he also has music available. You also have an update anchor and a pre-tape available to you, Bill.
Well, I'm going to use my last pre-tape here, and I've been going back and forth and really kind of struggling because I want to, like I said, represent as much of the show as I can. So I'm going to go with maybe not my favorite, but I want to make sure these people get on the show on this episode. I'm going to go with season 37 classic, Almost Pizza, with Bill Hader, Kristen Wiig, and Nassim Pedrad, where Kristen's the mom making the pizza in the kitchen, and there's something not quite right about it, and Bill Hader can tell this almost immediately. And she's trying to beg them to eat it, and he's like, "No, she says, "No, it's getting cold. No, it's getting hotter," and you can see the steam coming off of it. He throws a piece on the ground, and it shatters into a million pieces, and then puts itself back together and crawls under the fridge. Just one of those classic commercial parodies that, like you said, John, we don't get enough of these days. But I wanted to make sure we get some Kristen and Bill on my show. So that's my pick.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I love this pre-tape. It's so good. It's such a classic one. Bill, I am curious before we head over to Haskell, did Sammy or I steal your pre-tapes? Like, would you have gone with Totino's or beers if they were available to you?
No, my struggle was with having Will Ferrell on more because there's so many great pre-tapes from his time. So Totino's is definitely up there, of course, but this is what I had to go with.
Okay, well, Haskell, you're going to wrap up our 7th round of the draft. You have a cold open available to you. Only TJ has not selected a cold open thus far. You are the last person who will have a monologue available to him, and then you have music available. There's a ton of musical guests available for anybody. So go ahead.
I'm going to go with my cold open. I'm going to go from, again, sort of my era of the show, 2010. I'm going with We Are the World 3. Which is raising money for We Are the World 2. It's a sort of impression basket sketch where most of the cast gets in there, gets some musical impressions in, which is a little bit different than I think we normally see in these impression baskets. But again, it's a very of the time sketch. You had to understand what was going on in the world. And We Are the World 2 coming out, and it was although it was for a good cause, it was kind of like critically panned, and they go into that in the sketch. So just one of my favorite all-time cold opens. So using it for this episode.
Yeah, this is from the Jennifer Lopez episode in season 35. I remembered this very vividly when it came out. I also remember when We Are the World 2 came out, and you were right, Haskell. I mean, that was a very big deal that they were doing this and having all these new people, who was going to get in the song, who wasn't, and SNL did a very fun job in it. So I feel like one of the aspects of the show that we haven't talked enough about tonight is impressions. We picked a lot of very interesting sketches that SNL has created on their own, and maybe some political impressions, but as far as like celebrity impressions are concerned, such an important aspect of the show, Haskell covers it here in his episode. So now we're headed towards the later rounds of the draft. Each of you only have 2 more picks to make. So Haskell, it is your choice between picking a monologue or your musical guest.
I'm going because I got no competition for a monologue, so I'm going to go musical guest. I'm going an iconic band for a short period of time and an iconic moment. I'm going to go Nirvana from 1992. This is when they performed Smells Like Teen Spirit on SNL. Again, I mean, Kurt Cobain would die just 2 years later, so they would make one more appearance on the show. But obviously, this is an iconic band performing their most iconic song at the height of their popularity. So that's my musical guest.
This is a great pick. I mean, some moments take years to become iconic, and this was one that we didn't realize, if you were watching at the time, how important this was going to be, not only on Saturday Night Live, but in music. So this is one of those, ways that SNL has permeated different aspects of the culture. So I think that for me, this is an excellent pick and definitely would have been taken by other panelists if you hadn't taken it, Haskell, including Nicole, who definitely says that she would have done that. So there you go. One more pick available for Haskell. He's going to have the last pick of the draft coming up, and it'll be his monologue. But first, we head over to Bill, who also has music available and his update anchor.
This was one of the harder categories, even though I knew it would fall to the bottom of the draft with musical guests. I love music. There's so much great music, and we can't find so much of it because of rights and things. But I'm going to go with probably my favorite SNL musical appearance of all time. All the way back in season 2, we get Paul Simon, George Harrison singing together Homeward Bound and Here Comes the Sun. One of the classic episodes of SNL for a lot of reasons, but mostly for that music.
Yeah, this is all the way back in season 2, episode 8. And yeah, this is just a very, very classic episode, and just putting together, it shows the magic really of Saturday Night Live when you're able to put together these two iconic performers only in the second year of the show. And I mean, a lot of talk in the early days about, could we get a Beatle on the show? Well, yeah, they did. And they got him performing with the great Paul Simon. Eventually, you're going to see Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel reunite and perform on Saturday Night Live. So Paul Simon has a lot of iconic musical moments. Totally makes sense, Bill, that you would go ahead with that here. All right, Sammy, you also have music available to you and your update anchor.
Lots of my favorite musicians that performed on the show, so I'm going to let that sit to the last round. Weekend update. I need some representation here for the original cast, the not ready for primetime players. I really love Jane Curtin, especially on update. But just to spice it up a little bit, even though I do enjoy her as a solo anchor, I'm going to throw in Dan Aykroyd so we can get some point counterpoint, as well as Jane, you ignorant slut. So I'm going with Jane Curtin and Dan Aykroyd for my weekend update anchors.
Oh my god, so great. I mean, they're fantastic together. It's definitely a little bit like weird at first. They're trying to figure out the right vibe, and it's very experimental if you go back and watch the beginning of that update era, where they also have like the rest of the cast at the beginning of the updates as like other members of the news team. Like, it's a very fun thing and then eventually they hit their groove where they have like developed these characters and probably have, I'd say up until Tina and Jimmy, the most interesting anchor relationship together on the show. And like just the way that they communicate back and forth with each other, and it would only last for a season, but it is a very fun grouping that you put together here. So as far as Sammy's update anchors are concerned, he ends up going ahead with Jane Curtin and Dan Aykroyd from season 3 of the show. Okay. It's my pick now, and I have the choice between musical guest and live sketch, and I think I have to go with my live sketch here, because if I didn't take this one, I'd be upset with myself. Like, I still have one at the top of my board that to me is like an all-time sketch. And what's funny is like this was a sketch that was originally cut from a previous episode, and I think that's like one of the biggest worst mistakes SNL has ever made, that they cut this sketch, but I'm glad with the version that we ended up getting. And this is a sketch between Will Forte and Jon Hamm called Sex Offender. And this is where it's a classic Halloween sketch where they end up, Will rings the doorbell for Jon Hamm and introduces himself, and just he has to say who he is because he's living in the neighborhood. And just the writing on this is so brilliant. I know I have also another Will Forte sketch on my list as the dancing coach, but these are the two. Like, these are the across the board some of my favorites of all time. And like I said, I mean, this is one. It's short, it's quick, and it's perfect for me. So. This is one that I'm going to end my night on by having the Sex Offender with Jon Hamm, a great SNL host of modern days, with Will Forte. And that will round out my sketches for the night. I still have music to pick. Next up, we got TJ's 8th pick, where he has his cold open available and a live sketch.
All right. So what I learned while doing this, apparently, the hardest thing for me to pick was a cold open. And I think I hate SNL's cold opens, which that's I realized I had literally 2 choices, and that was it. So I decided to go with I was originally going to go with my favorite, which is the R. Kelly one, but I want to go for something a little more old, something that kind of I want to go with something that kind of shows there's been some love for Farley. And I got a chance to see this recently because someone on the podcast, I don't know who it was, mentioned it, and I watched the Chris Farley episode back in the 90s that he hosted, and it's Lauren and Tim Meadows are sitting in an office discussing whether or not Chris Farley is ready to go. Chris burned the office saying he's do it. He's as angry as ever. At some point, Chevy Show pops in and says that he's Chris Farley's sponsor. And then Lauren asks Chris, hey, can you still flop through a table? Chris tries to jump onto a desk and he flops around trying to break the desk. Doesn't happen. And Lauren says, all right, you can host the show. And for someone like me who hadn't had a ton of Chris exposure except for Matt Foley and a couple of other things, I was like, wow, I'm seeing what people like are talking about when they talk about that, like that animation, that Chris Farley physicality, like it was all there, like for someone like who hadn't had a lot of experience to see it just in that sketch alone and that cold open. And while I feel like it pairs better with an episode that's actually hosted by Farley, for myself, I think it's an incredible showcase for him and for someone who was new to Farley besides Matt Foley. And so really enjoyed that one. So that's my my pick for cold open.
Yeah, I mean, the context of this particular cold open is absolutely fascinating because it would be very close to when Farley would pass away. And a lot of the conversations they were having in this cold open were real. Like they were not sure if he could actually host the show. Chris Rock was basically available as the backup host if they needed to. And it was just a, really interesting time capsule of what was happening back in 97. And I think, if you're going to show somebody SNL and sort of describe how it's, progress through the timeline, I think that this is a very interesting point in SNL's history. So it's a great pick from you, TJ. Rebecca, you have a live sketch and a pre-tape left to be chosen. So where are you going to go?
I was going to do pre-tape, but to continue the Chris Farley conversation, I'm going to do my last live sketch. And I'm shocked nobody has picked this before. It's up there in my top 3 Farley sketches of all time. And with a woman with libido, how could I not talk about Chippendale auditions? I mean, it's a classic. It's just Chris Farleying all over the stage with Patrick Swayze. So I think it's a classic. I'm very, very shocked that in the 8th round it's finally being picked, but glad I got it.
And I think that the reason that this probably fell in the draft is because there is a lot of debate about this sketch about like, did Farley want to do this or not? And from my understanding from everyone that I've heard talk about this is that like, this is something he wanted to do. This is like who he was as a performer. And, for those people who knew Chris Farley, this was okay. And like, I think the sketch only becomes okay if you know that Chris was okay with it, wasn't forced to do it and that type of thing. So, but yeah, obviously like the physical humor here is something that we don't always get on Saturday Night Live. And Farley was like as good as it gets when it comes to that. So this is a great classic sketch that gets added very late into your rundown. Rebecca, love the choice here. Let's head over to Haynes, who has his musical guest and his update anchor ready to be picked.
I do, and I'll also say I was very shocked that made it so late. Like it's just such a classic sketch. We've talked about it so much. It's just amazing. Weekend update host. I'm gonna go with an original chap. Mr. Chevy Chase was a great Weekend update host. He was not in that position for very long. He was not on the show for very long, but as we all know, he was kind of the star of that original cast in so many ways, and he just really nailed that position. So I'll take Chevy.
Yeah, this is an awesome pick, obviously, because he created the longest recurring sketch in the history of the show, which was Weekend Update. And the way that he did this was just fantastic. And whatever you want to say about Chevy now, go back and watch some of those Weekend Updates. He just did a great job there and all through season 1 and partway into season 2 before transitioning over to Jane. So yeah, it makes sense that somebody had to pick Chevy here as being the OG Weekend Update anchor. So there he goes to Haynes. And then Nicole, you're going to finish up the 8th round of the draft. You have a pre-tape and musical guest available to be chosen. And you're going to kick off our final round of the draft. And we're going to have your full rundown available.
Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm going to do, it really doesn't matter which order I do because I have full control of my last 2 picks right here. I'm going to start with my musical guest and I'm going to do Tina Turner. And specifically her Proud Mary performance. I love Tina Turner and I love this performance. If you listen to it, it's just one of those that sounds even better than the recorded version. And we all know that like it is hard to sound good at SNL because it's so real. Like it's, there's no like hiding behind things where like in other live performance environments, you can sound good even if you don't sound good. SNL, it's very real and raw. So to sound even better than the recording and just so polished, but also fun. She's just polished and she's fun and fresh. And that performance specifically, she had been on before that as a musical guest. She had also been on as a cameo in a musical performance even before that. So she has a good, storied history with the show, but that performance I love. And I want to see it in my perfect episode.
Awesome. Well, what we have available left to be chosen in the final round of the draft, Haskell has his monologue to take, Nicole has a pre-tape, and Rebecca has a pre-tape. Live sketches, only TJ has live sketches left. Music, Haynes, myself, and Sammy. And then Bill has a weekend update left to be taken. So, Nicole, you're going to kick off our final round of the draft.
Okay, I'm so happy that I have this choice. I'm going to do I Ran So Far, the Lonely Island pre-tape. This one, I think, if they could only land this tone today, which they could never do. They as in SNL, they as in any comedy show, any pop culture show, I don't think there's any forum, any channel that could quite land that tone of international relations quite like that could. And I wish we could go back to a time where that could be done. There's a Jake Gyllenhaal cameo in there, which is close to my heart. I almost chose Bronx Beat with Jake Gyllenhaal. Love Jake Gyllenhaal on SNL. So this one just has everything to me. I had to do a musical pre-tape. I love this one so much. It's catchy. It's funny. It could literally unify the entire universe. I love it so much. And I think, again, I wish somebody could come out with something like that in 2022, 2023. I just think it's a moment in time that was brilliant and flawless. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great pick there. Of course, I love that song as well when it came out, season 33, episode 1 in 2007 with host LeBron James. But it really, I mean, Adam Levine is the star of this one along with Andy. And it's just a really fun choice. I do think this is like a kind of like a secret classic of the Lonely Island. So it's a great one to have in there in the mix. Haynes, we're going to head over to you for your final pick of the night. And of course, it's your musical guest. So who's going to perform for your episode?
Absolutely. So for my musical guest, and I love that, like, we're picking like Ashley Simpson, and I'm surprised someone hasn't said Fear yet. Like, I love the idea of just going for like the crazy things that have happened during these musical appearances. There's so many to choose from, but I'm just gonna go with something that's kind of in my vein, and I just love like badass shit. So Rage Against the Machine from 1996. I mean, they got kicked off. They got banned from SNL because of it, because they tried to hang up the flags upside down, and stagehands were rushing out to rip it down before the cameras went live. I love Rage Against the Machine, one of my favorite bands of all time, and so that's my musical guess.
All right, very interesting choice here. We get Rage Against the Machine to fill out Haynes' lineup, and yeah, this is a fun choice. I think obviously if you haven't gone back and seen that performance, there's just so many crazy ones in the history of the show. So maybe you may have missed that. Definitely check that out. That's from 1996, season 21. So Rebecca, you have one more sketch to fill out in your lineup, and that would be a pre-tape. So where are you going to go?
So I have the last pre-tape of this whole draft, and I'm really stuck between two, but one is another Lonely Island, so a shout out to Natalie's rap. But I'm going to go with my heart on this one and say Papyrus, the pre-tape with Ryan Gosling. It gets me every time. Again, it goes back to like, what if this is my perfect episode, what am I showing to people? And it's this drama that some guy losing his mind at the Avatar, and it's really timely with Way of Water now. The logo is papyrus, and now I go around, I see these restaurants with papyrus like font, and it's just, I can't go into Word, select my font, and not laugh at papyrus due to this sketch. So that's rounding out my draft.
It's a modern classic for sure, and it's one that people talked about as being that Ryan Gosling has had some really memorable performances, including an Alien Abduction as well. But Papyrus is one that stands out, and people just wanting to see what he's going to do on the show. So I think that is a very good choice here as your next or your last pre-tape available to be chosen. TJ, you have one more live sketch available to be chosen, and you can pick any live sketch in the history of the show because nobody else is picking any more after you.
I'm going to do something that, like, there's so many out there. There's so many great ones, but I'm really kind of realizing I'm making a show I want to see that I would watch. It's not going to be for everybody. So I'm not trying to win this competition. So I'm going to take Herb Welsh and I'm going to move him to my middle live sketch slot. And in my 10-1 live sketch, or not my 10-1, but basically my last live sketch of the night, I'm going to pick something I thought was weird, but it's something that like helped a buddy of mine and I from college like bond forever. I'm gonna pick Mafia Meeting with Peter Dinklage, or as some might better know it, the Space Pants live sketch, which is where Peter Dinklage and for some reason Gwen Stefani are on stage, as Jonathan comments, and I can't remember who her character was, but singing about Space Pants. In the meantime, Bobby Moynihan and Pete Davidson and some of the people are trying to have a mob meeting, but they keep getting distracted. But this guy's singing about Space Pants. It's made me laugh multiple times. I wish it was on Spotify. It cracks me up. It is by no means the world's greatest sketch at all. It is a one to show that one. It's a one to show those few friends that have that same weird sense of humor that you do, and that's just what I love about it.
Yeah, this is a very solid one here. Gwen Stefani, the musical guest that night, so she's with Peter Dinklage, and this was really fun. I'm a big Game of Thrones guy, so I remember when I saw this, it was probably my favorite moment of Peter Dinklage on the show, and this was one I do remember that week being passed around a lot. I'm sure we would have had a lot of fun with that on the podcast had we had that at the time. So great pick here from you, TJ. Okay, over to me for my last pick of the night. And I'm going to go with my musical guest here. And this was a really tough one for me. I mean, there's a lot of musical guests in the history of the show that have really appealed to me personally. Think of the Backstreet Boys. Obviously, Justin Timberlake performing on the show anytime is like my personal favorite. But if I'm just choosing the one that I think I want to recommend as like an iconic performance on the show, I'm going to go where I believe it was in 1999. Where we had Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem all perform together on the show. Like this is some really iconic stuff if you think back to like last year's Super Bowl and stuff, like getting them all together. But yeah, they did Still Dre and Forgot About Dre that night on the show. And I think to me that's like, we need some like hip hop representation on the show tonight with regards to some of the music. And I think for me that fills in well with my lineup. So I'm going to go with Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem. I know they're before TJ's time, but at least for me, I'm going to...
I've been minding my own business over here. I know who Dr. Dre, Snoop, and Eminem are. Of course I do.
Of course. Yeah. Okay, Sammy Kay, your last pick of the night as well will be some music. So where are you going to go?
Well, yeah, fans of this podcast know I too love hip hop. Definitely my favorite genre of music. I thought as a joke, almost like the kind of nega version of what John just picked. I was going to pick DJ Khaled because he brings in a lot of guests. Him being the musical guest was funny when that happened. He brought in so many different people. But I'm going to be a little more classy, picking A Tribe Called Quest. This was like really awesome to see. They put out an album that year for the first time in like a decade or two. They had a great tribute to Phife Dawg during their performance. And it's another aspect of this post-election Dave Chappelle episode that's being brought up during this draft. So going with A Tribe Called Quest.
Yeah, that episode has been all over this draft, but we do have A Tribe Called Quest going here over to Sammy from season 42, episode 6 in 2016. So great pick here, Sammy. And A Tribe Called Quest, obviously the pick for Chappelle, who he wanted to perform on his episode as well. Okay, let's head over to Bill Kenney for his last pick. This will be his update anchor. I'm pretty sure I know where he's going to go with this one. I don't think there's any surprises here with Bill, but let's find out.
You may be surprised. I am so excited that Gail Mathias and Charles Rocket fell to me. No, I think you are going to be surprised, John, because as I said, I'm trying to get this whole era, this whole time of SNL together. I love Dennis Miller. I love Norm Macdonald. I'm going Che and Jost. I think over the last 7 or 8 years, they've really shown themselves to maybe be the best duo ever to host Weekend Update. So I'm glad they fell to me. I don't usually go with the recent stuff as much because I like to give the whole history of the show. Dennis Miller was my boy, and I still love watching his old updates, but I'm going Che and Jost.
Makes total sense. This is a great pick. I mean, it's just a matter of perspective. I think if we were doing this draft in 10 years, I think they go much earlier in the draft. So this makes sense. And I'm glad you picked them here so that they're represented because obviously they've turned into just like a very iconic duo. I think we're going to miss them a lot when they're gone. So great pick here, Bill. All right. The lovable loser, last pick of the draft, heads over to Haskell for his monologue. So Not you're not a lovable loser. I'm saying it's the
Lovable
last one.
loser. They put me at the end of the draft. I'm still going to win the whole thing. I'm going to
Let's see.
round it out. You want to talk about lovable monologue? Betty White. Not much to say. An iconic episode. An iconic host. She was perfect in it. She was sort of self-deprecating. She was lovely. She was sweet. It was everything that everybody wanted when they signed that petition to have her host the episode. So Betty White monologue is going to close it out for me.
Yeah, that's a great pick here. Obviously, there's what's there to say about Betty White? I mean, just so fantastic. That's from season 35, episode 21. So that does it for our rundowns for tonight. So this is what we're going to do to finish up the podcast this evening. Obviously, listeners, we're going to post these rundowns in a few days on social media. We want your votes on which one is the best episode to present as the greatest SNL episode of all time, or the ultimate SNL episode. And here's what we're going to do, panel, to wrap things up. I'm going to ask you for a couple things. One, give us the final rundown of your episode. Make your pitch to the listeners why you think it is the ultimate. And then at the same time, give us your plugs, and we'll wrap the evening after we get through all of you. So, Nicole, you are up first. Of course, you can switch up the order if you'd like. Just tell us what your final order and rundown is for all of your sketches tonight.
Okay, so we're going to go the Hillary Clinton election video, Cold Open, Lin-Manuel Miranda monologue, Black Jeopardy with Tom Hanks for our first live sketch, right into I Ran So Far. Then we've got Lunch Ladyland. We've got Tina Turner giving us some amazing music, Proud Mary, among other songs. Then Update, we've got Seth and Amy. Really? Really, yes. That's what we have. Then we have The Actress, Emma Stone. And then we end the night with a beautiful dance from none other than Gilda Radner and Steve Martin, Dancing in the Dark. What better note is there to end on than that? So that's mine. I think that you have to vote for me. This is a very, very well-rounded, comprehensive journey through time for SNL. I think that it shows a lot of different time periods, a lot of different types of sketches and moments and characters and impressions. I think it's very, 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 wholesome. And then we have a beautiful note to end on. So I think that you should vote for mine, and then you can follow me at Nicole Rovine wherever you want. And thank you, everyone, for listening. If you've made it this far, congratulations for bearing with us all this time.
Haynes, you are up next. Give us your ultimate episode rundown and where the listeners can check out everything you got going on.
I mean, look, we open up with one of, the most iconic cold opens in the last, 20 plus years with the Lockbox Strategery Gorbush Open. And then we've got Dave Chappelle breaking down all sorts of records with the longest monologue in history and tackling this kind of insane moment culturally. Then we've got Celebrity Jeopardy, a recurring sketch that they come back to, I think, 15 times throughout the history of SNL because it's so amazing. Eddie Murphy's White Like Me sketch, which, as I said, I think, created in some ways, planted that seed for things like Chappelle Show and Key and Peele. You've got Bodega Bathroom, I think one of maybe the greatest musical sketch in SNL history. Rage Against the Machine, so badass that they're getting banned from the building. Chevy Chase as the Weekend Update host. He's the OG. Then we've got Phil Hartman as Bill Clinton. What gets better than that? And then topping it off with Chris Farley and Adam Sandler with the Schmitz Gay pre-tape. Honestly, I don't know how you could pick a better episode.
Yeah, that's very true. Very interesting. We'll see what the listeners have to say. Haynes, anywhere the listeners can check you out, or just on the podcast?
Yeah, you don't want to find me. I don't want you to find me. This is where I am. You'll find me here.
All right, looking forward to chatting with you in 2023, Haynes. And Rebecca, please give us your ultimate rundown why listeners should vote for you and where the listeners can check out everything you are doing.
So my mindset was not necessarily here's this, you're going to laugh the entire episode through. It's more of a journey and an appreciation for SNL and all it has to offer. Whether, yes, there's a lot of funny going on in my episode, but it also starts off with a controversial bang that also shows the other side and shows how influential the show is in modern day political culture, pop culture. And also, so run through, it starts with Hallelujah is the cold open. Then we go into Robin Williams monologue, which is just an all-time. goes then into Delicious Dish, Sweaty Balls, because it has to be the beginning of the episode to honor Lauren's fight to keep it there. Farewell, Mr. Bunting is just, I mean, it's unexpected, it's funny, and just another modern classic. Then we go down to Target Lady. See, there's a lot of peaks and valleys here, like more serious, funny. So that's just a personal favorite that never fails to make me laugh. And then we go into Ashley Simpson, who, I mean, like, what's iconic without Ashley Simpson being there? And then we go to Tina and Amy hosting Weekend Update, being mothering the hell out of Weekend Update. And then Chippendales audition. And then we end the night with Papyrus.
Awesome choices, Rebecca. Anywhere the listeners can find you?
At Rebarbecue on all social media.
All right, TJ, give us your rundown and where the listeners can check out everything you got going on.
Yeah, so you got it. So I'm going to open up my show with a lot of love to the SNL fans. So if you are somebody who loves seeing Chevy Chase, Tim Meadows, Lorne Michaels, not just for a quick glance, you see him the whole sketch. He's in the whole thing. My cold open is to the SNL superfan, and even to the casual viewer. We have a man flopping around on top of a desk in a leather jacket. I mean, honestly, what a way to open a show. And if that doesn't get you, we have one of the funniest men to ever do it, Don Rickles, breaking a record that was only recently broken with the monologue, not only insulting the head of NBC, but insulting a man that I got the name of wrong earlier. Something Madden. Who knows? Maybe he was in charge of the video game. Who cares? But nonetheless, he insults the director. He breaks the show. So we get Lauren in the beginning of the show and disrespect to the staff. Oh my God, like what more could you want? Then we have Tina and Amy Mother Truck and Polar coming in with a modern classic about meeting your second wife and telling the future. This sketch honestly speaks for itself. And then you're thinking, okay, wow, I'm riding a high right now. How could this get any better? Oh, we're going to let you cool down on the laughs, but we're going to get you with the energy with a fantastic, catchy tune. You're thinking about, I just had sex. It might make you want to go have sex later on. Maybe you just did before the show, and it's making you feel good. So we are all about the high energy here, and then we're going to cool things down just a little bit. You know, just when you have a slow song after, you know, the first couple bangers on an album, Mr. Herb Welsh is going to come in with the yucks, but his chill vibe is going to be the nice chill part of the album. And then Lizzo's just going to creep up on you with those wonderful vocals that she has and bring down the mother trucking house with an incredible vocal performance. Cecily and Colin are going to do their thing at the update desk. You might think they're inexperienced. Who cares? They're going to make you chuckle. There's a little bit of confidence there. We appreciate it. They're going to keep the show running nice and smooth. And then you're going to think, how could the show get any better? I'm feeling kind of crazy in all over the place right now. Well, it's going to get weird. Peter Dinklage is going to sing about space pants for 3 minutes while Bobby Moynihan pretends to be a mafia boss. It's going to be incredible. And then we're going to end with another catchy tune. You're going to open Spotify the second the show is done. Threw it on the ground, hums on. You think, how can I feel any better? You can't. Because now you're just going to be listening to SNL songs. You're going to want to look up sketches. The energy of my episode is incredible. You want to know where you can find me? Well, I have a 15-ish minute podcast called Rabbit Trail. That's RABID. John, Nicole, Sean Grant, so many people have been on it. Rebecca was recently on it. And fun fact, her episode that we did on Bo Burnham is now the 4th most listened to of my fucking show, which blows me away. It's very impressive, and we were very glad to have her. We just did an episode on anime tropes and taboos. Recently we released one on gift giving. And by the time this comes out, we probably have just released one on video game soundtracks. You can find my podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Again, that's Rabbit Trail, RABID. And you can look us up on social media at We Are Rabbit Trail on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can always find me, TJ, on Instagram and TikTok. Thanks for having me, John.
Awesome. I'll go through my rundown very quickly and then we'll over to Sammy, Bill, and Haskell. So mine was, we're going to kick things off with the classic Steve Martin's Not Gonna Phone In Tonight, the greatest cold open of all time. We have Jimmy Fallon's Monologue coming up next, a really great look at the cast and behind the scenes, and just a lot of fun Christmas spirit. Of course, dancing coach Will Forte's epic moment on the show. We're bringing physical comedy and weirdness to everything and just making the cast laugh. Lazy Sunday, one of the most iconic pre-tapes in the history of the show, comes up next. Then we're going to head all the way back to the beginnings of the show with some of the greatest characters from the original era of the show. Coneheads in their Family Feud sketch. How about some music from hip hop legends Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem to get you going into Norm Macdonald's Weekend Update, probably the most iconic Weekend Update performer at this point. Anchor, I mean, it's debatable, but it's he's certainly up there. So you definitely are going to want to tune in to see what Norm is going to say. And then for me, I'm going to have Totino's number 3 come next, my pre-tape, where you have the legendary Vanessa Bayer coming in to do that, and just a really fun pre-tape with Kristen Stewart. And then my last sketch of the night, your classic ultimate 10-to-1, the Will Forte's sex offender sketch with John Hamm. I think for me, that is my ultimate SNL episode lineup. If that show was on TV right now, I wouldn't miss it. I would just love to tune in and see what's going to be there. So that is why you should vote for mine. Sammy Kay, let's tell the listeners about your lineup and where the listeners can reach out to you.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to start off with the cold open. We have Sarah Palin and Hillary Clinton. Very iconic political cold open. I can see Russia from my house. What a iconic way to start the show. Then we're going over to Adam Sandler's Monologue from season 44. You're having a long-awaited returning cast member finally come back and host the show and sing a song about how he got fired from the show. Then our first live sketch of the night is going to be Bill Hader in the Puppet Class sketch, probably one of the defining sketches from Bill Hader's career. Then we're moving on to our pre-tape, which is I'm on a Boat, the only Grammy-nominated song from the Lonely Islands catalog. And then we're going to have the Wayne's World sketch featuring Tom Hanks and Aerosmith, maybe the most iconic iteration of that sketch. And then for our musical guest, we have A Tribe Called Quest, an iconic performance on the show after many, many years of waiting for them to put out another album. Then at the Weekend Update desk, we have Dan Aykroyd and Jane Curtin for a little bit of that not ready for prime time players flair. And then in my rundown, we're going to have a pre-tape following that. Beck and Kyle's beer sketch with Larry David, his great return to the show. And then finally, She's Like a Rainbow, Kristen Wiig's farewell sketch, a nice kind of, emotional, bittersweet wrap up to this episode. And honestly, I'm really happy with how this draft went. I think it speaks for itself. And if you guys want to hear more from me in the future, you guys can find me at Sammy Kay on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Check out our other Superfan Takeovers. We have a bunch in the lineup you can watch over the holidays. And please check out our interview with Bobby Moynihan if you have not already. It was awesome. So would love for you guys to check that out.
Absolutely. All right, Bill Kenney, you are up next. Please tell the listeners why they should check out your episode and vote for it.
Okay, well, we're starting with the beautiful 9/11 opening from right after 9/11 with Paul Simon. Then we go right into the Tom Hanks Five-Timers sketch, the very first Five-Timer sketch. Then we're going right into Cowbell as our first live sketch of the night. And followed by that, we have the Colombian Crystals pre-tape with the unbelievable Chris Farley. Word Association after that with Pryor and Chevy Chase. Then we go into the musical guests. I mean, how can you beat Paul Simon and George Harrison? At the Weekend Update desk, we've got Michael Che and Colin Jost for a little bit of current flavor. Going to Church Chat after that. And my final pre-tape will be Almost Pizza. So you've got Hanks, you've got Walken, you've got Will Ferrell, Chevy Chase, Richard Pryor. Come join me. You can follow me at BKLove73.
Absolutely. Okay, Haskell, take us home with your lineup.
All right. We got cold open. We Are the World 3, our monologue. Betty White. First live sketch, Matt Foley, followed by the pre-tape Dick in a Box. Next live sketch, Colonel Angus. Musical guest Nirvana from 1992. Weekend Update Seth Meyers. I'm going to go to a pre-tape Undercover Boss, Matt the Radar Technician. And we're going to close it out with Good Night Saigon. Listen, I don't wax poetic. I don't have to sit here and tell you why I have the best episode. You saw it. Check it out. People talk about their strategy. He was my strategy. Draft the ultimate episode of Saturday Night Live, and I did that. All right? Andrew E. Haskell on Twitter and Instagram.
Thank you so much, everybody, for checking out this episode. If you made it all the way to the end, definitely let us know. I would appreciate that for sure, because this was, I'd say, the second longest episode we ever done in the history of the network. The first one was probably by the numbers we did at the end of 47. But this was a very ambitious idea. I'm so proud of our panelists for everything they've contributed to the network in 2022. If you're listening to this, this is the last show we are producing in 2022. Next week, at the beginning of the new year, we're going to be releasing our best of 2022 special. So in case you missed some of the really fun moments from the year, that'll be what's coming up next for you. And then, of course, we'll be back throughout 2023 to cover season 48 of Saturday Night Live and into the future of SNL. So I want to thank all of our panelists for joining us tonight, everybody in the chat as well. Make sure to follow us at the SNL Network. We'll be posting a ton of content over the holidays. I wish you and your families a very happy holidays and a happy new year. For Nicole, Haynes, Rebecca, TJ, Sammy, Bill, Haskell, and myself, Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network, we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.